Do you want to hear about the day I fired my husband in front of hundreds of employees? Or the day his little mistress turned my $5,000 Armani coat into a floor rag with a caramel macchiato? Actually, those two events happened at the same time. This is the story of how a spilled coffee saved my family's billion-dollar legacy from one of the most vicious plots in Wall Street history. Do not look away, because the price of betrayal is far higher than the cost of a divorce. My name is Belinda Ashford, and for the last 3 months, I have been a ghost. To the villagers in the remote highlands of Peru, I was simply La Arquitecta, the quiet woman with calloused hands who helped mix concrete and frame roofs for their new solar-powered school. They did not know that the dusty boots I wore were worth more than the annual income of their entire community, nor did they know that with a single phone call, I could level a city block in Chicago. I liked it that way. I preferred the honest ache of physical labor to the migraine-inducing politics of the boardroom. But now, the ghost has returned to the machine. The sliding glass doors of O'Hare International Airport parted, and the frigid wind of a Chicago October slapped me across the face. It was a stark, violent contrast to the humid warmth of the Andes, instantly drying the sweat on my neck and reminding me that I was no longer in the wild. I was back in the concrete jungle. I pulled my oversized denim jacket tighter around myself. It was stained with red clay and smelled faintly of wood smoke and stale airplane air. My hair was pulled back in a chaotic bun that had not seen a brush in 20 hours. My eyes felt like they were packed with sand. I hailed a taxi. Ignoring the judgmental look the driver gave my battered duffel bag as he tossed it into the trunk, he probably thought I was a backpacker who had run out of money, or perhaps a volunteer worker returning from the Peace Corps. He certainly did not think I was the majority shareholder of the skyline he was driving towards. "Where to?" he grunted, eyeing me in the rearview mirror. "Vanguard Horizons Tower," I said, my voice raspy from disuse. "The financial district." He raised an eyebrow but said nothing, merging into the morning traffic. As we crawled along the Kennedy Expressway, I watched the city rise up to meet us. Chicago was a beast of steel and glass, a monument to human ambition. My grandfather had helped build this city, and my father had perfected it. And I was supposed to be maintaining it. I checked my watch. It was 9 a.m. Today was our 5th wedding anniversary. 5 years since I stood in the manicured gardens of our Lake Geneva estate and promised to love and cherish Derek Sterling. I had not told him I was coming home early. I wanted to surprise him. I wanted to see the look of genuine delight on his face when I walked through the door, proving that despite the distance and the pressure, we were still the golden couple of the architectural world. But there was another reason for my silence, a reason that sat in my gut like a heavy stone: the financial reports. For the last 6 months, the quarterly statements sent to me by the board had been glossy, too glossy. The numbers were rounded off too neatly, and the expenses for miscellaneous operational costs had ballooned by nearly 200%. Every time I asked Derek about it during our brief, crackling satellite phone calls, he would laugh it off. "Just expansion costs, babe," he would say. "You worry about the bricks and mortar. Let me worry about the dollars and cents." I wanted to believe him. I desperately wanted to believe that my husband was the brilliant executive he claimed to be, the man who was modernizing my family's legacy while I pursued my passion for sustainable design in developing nations. The taxi pulled up to the curb, and I paid the driver in cash, tipping him $10 more than necessary just to alleviate the guilt of my own privilege. I stood on the sidewalk and looked up. Vanguard Horizons. The building was my masterpiece. I had designed the renovation myself 3 years ago, transforming a cold, brutalist skyscraper into a beacon of green energy. The facade was a living wall of vertical gardens, interspersed with solar glass that shimmered like a dragon's scales in the morning light. It was magnificent. It was powerful. It breathed. But as I stood there, clutching the handle of my dirty suitcase, I felt a strange disconnect. The building looked the same, yet it felt different. The energy radiating from it was not the calm, purposeful hum I remembered. It felt frantic. Instead of heading for the private executive entrance around the side, the one that required a biometric scan and led directly to the penthouse office, I walked toward the main revolving doors. I wanted to see my company through the eyes of a client, an employee, and a stranger. Derek had promised me he was revolutionizing the company culture, making it more open, more vibrant. I wanted to see this vibrancy for myself. I pushed through the heavy glass doors and stepped into the lobby. The assault on my senses was immediate. The lobby of Vanguard Horizons was designed to be a sanctuary. I had chosen acoustic paneling and a waterfall feature to create a hush, a sense of awe. But now, that hush was obliterated by the pounding bass of electronic dance music. It was not background music. It was club music, thumping at a volume that made my teeth vibrate. The waterfall had been turned off. In its place stood a massive, gaudy cardboard cutout of a superhero, advertising some kind of corporate synergy event. The sleek minimalist furniture I had imported from Milan had been rearranged into chaotic clusters, and the floor, the beautiful, hand-laid Italian marble floor, was scuffed and dirty. I walked toward the reception desk, the wheels of my suitcase clicking rhythmically over the stone. The reception area was a long slab of polished granite, meant to look like a floating monolith. Behind it sat two young women. Neither of them looked up as I approached. One was aggressively chewing gum while scrolling through a tablet, and the other was applying a layer of lip gloss so thick it looked like vinyl. "Excuse me," I said, leaning against the cold stone of the desk. The gum-chewing girl did not stop scrolling. She just held up a finger. A long, manicured talon painted a neon green. "Hold on," she drawled. "I am in the middle of something." I waited. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. The something appeared to be a social media feed. "I am here to see Derek Sterling," I said, letting a fraction of my authority bleed into my voice. Finally, she looked up. Her eyes raked over my messy hair, my clay-stained jacket, and my scuffed boots. A sneer curled her upper lip. "Mr. Sterling," she laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Honey, do you have an appointment?" "No," I said calmly. "I do not need one." "Right," she said, popping her gum. "Look, we do not accept walk-in solicitors, and we definitely do not have any openings for cleaning staff right now. The service entrance is around the back." I blinked. She thought I was applying for a janitorial position. Under normal circumstances, I might have found this amusing, a testament to how effectively I had shed my corporate skin. But today, on my anniversary, standing in the building that bore my family's mark, it felt like a slap. "I am not looking for a job," I said, my voice dropping an octave. "I am looking for your CEO." "He is in a meeting," the other girl chimed in, capping her lip gloss. "A high-level strategy meeting, off-site. He is not to be disturbed for the rest of the day. Now, unless you are delivering lunch, you need to move. You are blocking the flow." The flow. The lobby was half empty, save for a few bewildered-looking delivery couriers and a group of employees huddled near the elevators, looking miserable. I turned away from the desk, my knuckles white on the handle of my suitcase. This was the culture Derek was building: arrogance and negligence wrapped in loud music. I began to walk toward the elevators, intending to override the security protocols with my master passcode, when a familiar voice cut through the thumping bass. "I understand your frustration, Mr. Kowalski. Truly I do. But shouting is not going to make the wire transfer appear any faster." I froze. I knew that voice. It was cool, measured, and sounded like gravel wrapped in velvet. I turned toward the seating area near the north wall, standing there, looking impeccably dressed in a charcoal gray three-piece suit, was Gabriel Stone. Gabriel was my oldest friend. We had met in law school before I dropped out to pursue architecture, and he had stayed the course to become the most feared corporate litigator in Illinois. When I took over Vanguard Horizons, he was the first person I hired. He was my chief legal officer, my consigliere, and the only person in the world who dared to tell me when I was being an idiot. But Gabriel looked tired. No, he looked exhausted. There were dark circles under his eyes that no amount of expensive concealer could hide, and his shoulders, usually squared with military precision, were slumped. He was standing in front of a man who looked to be in his 60s, a contractor wearing a high-visibility vest and holding a crumpled hard hat. The man looked desperate. "It has been 60 days, Mr. Stone," the man shouted, his voice cracking. 60 days. My guys need to eat. I have paid for the materials out of my own pocket because Mr. Sterling promised the check was in the mail. I cannot carry this anymore. If I do not get paid $40,000 by Friday, I am bankrupt. My heart hammered against my ribs. $40,000 Vanguard Horizons had a liquidity buffer of $50 million. We never paid late. It was the first rule my father had taught me. You eat last. You pay your people first. I watched as Gabriel sighed. Reaching into his own jacket pocket, he pulled out a checkbook, not the company checkbook, his personal one. I cannot release the company funds without a second signature, and Derek is unavailable, Gabriel said quietly, scribbling on the check. But this is from me. It is a personal loan. It will cover your payroll for this week. I will sort out the accounting mess by Monday. You have my word. The older man took the check, his hands trembling. You are a good man, Stone, but tell that boss of yours. Tell him he is playing with fire. Gabriel nodded grimly. I know. I stepped back into the shadow of a large decorative pillar, my breath caught in my throat. My chief legal officer was paying company debts with his personal funds. It was worse than I thought. It was not just incompetence. It was a meltdown. Why hadn't Gabriel told me? Why had he protected Derek, or was he protecting me? I wanted to run over to him, to hug him and demand answers, but I stopped myself. If I revealed myself now, the element of surprise would be lost. I needed to see the full extent of the rot. I needed to see Derek. High-level strategy meeting, the receptionist had said. I looked around the lobby. If Derek was not here, and the company was bleeding money, where was he? And more importantly, who was running this circus? I decided not to go up to the executive suite just yet. The penthouse would be locked down, and if Derek was truly out, I would just be sitting in an empty office staring at frightening spreadsheets. I needed to see the life of the building. I dragged my suitcase over to a secluded corner near the in-house coffee shop. The Daily Grind. It was a small concession stand I had installed to provide free, high-quality coffee to employees. Now, I noticed a sign on the counter. Staff discount 10%. Public price $8. Free coffee was gone. Now they were charging $8 for a latte. I sank into a low armchair that was positioned behind a large potted fiddle-leaf fig tree. It was a perfect vantage point. From here, I could see the elevators, the reception desk, and the main entrance. I pulled a baseball cap from my bag and pulled it low over my eyes. Slumping down to look like a tired traveler waiting for a ride, I was invisible. Just another piece of debris in the chaotic lobby of Vanguard Horizons. I watched the clock on the wall. 10:15. I would wait. I would watch. And I would pray that the man I married 5 years ago walked through those doors with a valid explanation for why my legacy was crumbling, and why my best friend was paying our bills. But as I sat there, listening to the atrocious music and watching the unhappy faces of my employees, a cold dread settled in my stomach. I had a feeling that the surprise I had planned for Derek was nothing compared to the surprise he had waiting for me. I just didn't know yet that the surprise would be wearing 6-inch heels and carrying a fake Hermes bag. The silence I had been hoping for in the corner of the lobby did not last long. In fact, it was shattered less than 10 minutes later by a sound that was more piercing than a construction drill and twice as annoying. It was the click, clack, click of stilettos on marble, followed by a voice that seemed to have been engineered in a laboratory to shatter glass. Okay, guys. We are alive. Can you hear me? Drop a heart in the chat if you can hear the future queen of Chicago real estate. I peered through the leaves of the fiddle-leaf fig tree. Strutting through the revolving doors was a young woman who looked like she had gotten lost on her way to a nightclub in Las Vegas. She could not have been older than 22. She was wearing a dress that was shockingly short, a neon pink bandage number that hugged her body so tightly it looked painful. Her hair was bleached to a platinum blonde that bordered on white, styled in loose, bouncy curls that bounced with every step. But it was the accessories that made my architect's eye twitch. She was teetering on red-bottomed heels that I instantly recognized as knockoffs. The arch was too steep, the heel too thick, and on her arm, crooked aggressively so the logo faced outward, was a Hermes Birkin bag, or rather, an attempt at a Birkin bag. From 20 feet away, I could see the stitching was machine-done, not hand-sewn, and the gold hardware was too brassy. It was a fake, a high-quality fake, perhaps, but a fake nonetheless. This was Chloe Miller. I did not know her name yet, but I knew her type. I had seen dozens of girls like her in the social circles of the city, desperate for fame, addicted to attention, and convinced that the world owed them a living simply because they knew how to use a ring light. She was holding a smartphone on a gimbal stabilizer, marching through the center of the lobby as if she owned the deed to the land. So, for those of you just joining, she chirped at her screen, pouting her lips. I am walking into Vanguard Horizons right now. You know, just another day at the office. Being a girl boss is so exhausting, but someone has to keep this empire running, right? I felt a vein in my temple throb. Girl boss empire. She was wearing an intern badge. It was clipped to the strap of her fake purse, dangling like a participation trophy. Today is going to be huge, she continued, stopping in the middle of the thoroughfare and forcing a group of accountants to swerve around her. My fiancé, the CEO, has a big surprise for me. I cannot say what it is yet, but let us just say it rhymes with diamond ring and promotion. Stay tuned. My stomach turned over. Fiancé Derek had never mentioned a girlfriend, let alone a fiancé. We were married, legally, publicly married, unless I had developed amnesia in Peru. I was still Mrs. Derek Sterling. I watched, mesmerized by the train wreck unfolding before me. Chloe did not head for the elevators. She stayed in the lobby, treating the workplace of 500 professionals as her personal film set. She posed next to the reception desk, making the receptionists uncomfortable. She took a selfie with the security guard, who looked like he wanted to vanish into the floor. "Move it, Grandpa." She suddenly snapped. The sudden shift in her tone was jarring. 1 second she was sugary sweet for the camera, and the next she was spitting venom. She was yelling at Mr. Henderson. I recognized him immediately. He was the head of our janitorial staff, a man in his late 60s who had worked for my father for 30 years. He was a Vietnam veteran, a man of immense dignity who took pride in keeping this building spotless. He was currently mopping a spill near the elevators, his movements slow and methodical. Chloe had been walking backward while talking to her phone and had nearly tripped over his wet floor sign. "I am so sorry, Mr. Henderson said, bowing his head apologetically. "I was just cleaning up a coffee spill." "You almost ruined my shoes," Chloe shrieked. She looked down at her red-bottomed heels. There was a tiny, microscopic droplet of water on the toe of the left shoe. "Do you have any idea how much these cost? These are Louboutins. They cost more than your entire life savings." "I apologize," Mr. Henderson said again, reaching for a rag to help her. "Do not touch me." She recoiled, as if he were radioactive. "You are filthy God. Why is the help so incompetent in this building, I swear? When I am officially in charge, the first thing I am going to do is fire all these old, useless people and hire some young, hot staff. We need to upgrade the aesthetic. You know." She turned back to her phone, her face instantly morphing back into a smile. "Sorry, guys. Just dealing with some incompetence. It is so hard to find good help these days. Anyway, look at this floor. It is marble, imported from Italy. My husband picked it out just for me." I gripped the armrest of my chair so hard I heard the fabric creak. Her husband Derek did not pick out that marble. I did. I spent 3 weeks in Carrara selecting the exact slabs. This was a nightmare. A surreal, fever dream nightmare. Just then, Gabriel Stone stepped forward. He had been finishing his conversation with the contractor, but the commotion had drawn his attention. He walked over to where Chloe was berating Mr. Henderson, his face a mask of cold fury. "Miss Miller," Gabriel said, his voice cutting through her shrill complaints. Chloe rolled her eyes, not even bothering to lower her phone. "Ugh, what do you want? Gabriel, can you not see I am creating content? This is for the company's brand awareness. I am fairly certain the company brand does not benefit from you abusing a senior staff member," Gabriel said calmly. He gestured to Mr. Henderson, who was looking down at his feet in shame. "Mr. Henderson has worked here for 3 decades. He deserves your respect. And furthermore, you are blocking the elevators. Please move aside, or go to your designated workstation." Chloe laughed. It was a cruel, high-pitched sound. She stepped closer to Gabriel, invading his personal space. She was a good foot shorter than him, but her arrogance gave her a strange, inflated presence. "My designated workstation," she mocked. "Listen here, you glorified paper pusher. I do not have a workstation. The entire building is my workstation. And who do you think you are talking to? I am talking to an intern who is currently violating 3 different sections of the Employee Code of Conduct regarding dress code, workplace harassment, and unauthorized filming." Gabriel cited, his lawyer instincts kicking in. "Turn off the camera. Miss Miller, now." Chloe's eyes narrowed. She turned the camera so it was pointing directly at Gabriel's face. "Say hi to my followers, Gabriel," she taunted. "Everyone, this is Gabriel Stone. He is the chief legal officer, which sounds fancy, but basically, he is just a hired lawyer. He thinks he can boss me around." She lowered the phone slightly and hissed at him, her voice dripping with malice. "You better watch your tone with me, Gabe. You know exactly who I'm sleeping with. You know exactly whose ring is going to be on this finger. If you annoy me one more time, I will call my husband right now and have you thrown out on the street before lunch. Do not test me." The audacity was breathtaking. She was threatening the second most powerful person in the company, well, technically the third, if she counted me with termination, using her affair with the CEO as leverage. The lobby had gone silent. The music seemed to fade into the background as everyone strained to hear the confrontation. The receptionists had stopped chewing gum. The security guards were looking away, terrified to intervene. They all knew. Everyone knew. "Your husband," Gabriel repeated, his voice dangerously low. "Last I checked, Mr. Sterling was already married." "To who?" Chloe scoffed, broadcasting her ignorance to the world. "That invisible woman, please. Belinda Ashford hasn't been seen in months. Rumor has it she is in a mental institution somewhere, or maybe she died in a ditch in South America. Derek doesn't love her. He loves me. I am the reality. She is just a ghost on a piece of paper." She flipped her hair, turning back to her audience. "See, guys' haters are everywhere. They are just jealous because I am young, beautiful, and I bagged the billionaire. But don't worry, the queen stays unbothered." "Miss Miller," Gabriel said, stepping in front of her to block the camera, "I am giving you a direct order. Stop filming and apologize to Mr. Henderson." "Or what?" she challenged, hands on her hips. "Or I will have security escort you out for creating a hostile work environment." Chloe's face turned red. The mask of the bubbly influencer slipped completely, revealing the spoiled, entitled brat underneath. "You would not dare. Derek is in a meeting. But the second he gets out, I am telling him everything. I will tell him you pushed me. I will tell him you assaulted me. Let us see who he believes, the boring old lawyer or the woman carrying his—" She stopped herself, a sly grin spreading across her face. "Well, let us just say I have a little secret that guarantees my job security for the next 18 years. A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers. She was implying she was pregnant. Gabriel looked like he was about to be sick. He clenched his fists at his sides, his knuckles turning white. He was a man of logic and law. and he was being held hostage by a chaotic element that defied all reason. He looked trapped. He knew that if he physically removed her, she would spin the narrative. If Derek was truly as compromised as it appeared, Gabriel would be the one to fall. I sat in my chair, my heart pounding a rhythm of pure rage against my ribs. This was not just bad behavior. This was cancer. Derek had not just cheated on me. That I could handle. Marriages fail. People make mistakes. But he had allowed this caricature of a human being to humiliate my staff, degrade my friends, and turn my family's legacy into a backdrop for her vanity project. He had given her power. He had emboldened her to think she was untouchable. That invisible woman, she had called me, died in a ditch. I looked at my dirty boots. I looked at my calloused hands. Then I looked at Gabriel, standing there alone, defending the dignity of a janitor against a monster created by my husband. I could not sit in the shadows anymore. The ghost had to materialize. I stood up, my knees popped, and my body ached from the flight. But I felt a surge of energy that was colder and sharper than any adrenaline. I grabbed the handle of my battered duffel bag. It was heavy, filled with samples of rocks and soil from Peru. But right now, it felt like a weapon. I pulled my baseball cap down tighter, shielding my eyes, and began to walk. I did not walk with the click-clack strut of Chloe Miller. I walked with the heavy, rhythmic thud of work boots. Thud, thud, thud. I moved out from behind the planter and headed straight for the center of the lobby. The sound of my approach was different from the ambient noise. It was purposeful. Gabriel saw me first. His eyes widened in shock. He opened his mouth to say my name, but I held up a single finger, silencing him. He closed his mouth immediately, a flicker of relief washing over his tired face. He stepped back, clearing the path. Chloe was too busy checking her reflection in her phone screen to notice me until I was 5 feet away. "Excuse me," I said. My voice was not loud, but it carried the weight of someone who has shouted orders over the roar of excavators and windstorms. Chloe turned, annoyed at the interruption. She looked me up and down, her lip curling in disgust as she took in the denim, the dirt, and the lack of makeup. "Ugh, can I help you?" she sneered. "Deliveries are in the back. Or are you looking for a homeless shelter? It is 3 blocks down." She pointed a manicured finger toward the door. I did not move. I just looked at her, up close. The tragedy of her was even more apparent. She was beautiful, objectively, but it was a beauty painted over a void. "I am not looking for a shelter," I said, "and I am not delivering lunch. I am here to teach you a lesson." "Excuse me," she laughed, looking around for support from her audience. "Who is this hobo security? Why are you letting trash wander into the lobby?" "I suggest you put the phone down," I said, taking another step forward. "And I suggest you apologize to the gentleman you just insulted. And then, I suggest you take those fake shoes and walk them out of this building before you embarrass yourself further." Chloe's jaw dropped. She was not used to being spoken to like this. To her, I was nobody, a speck of dust. "Fake shoes," she screeched, her voice cracking. "These are genuine. And who are you to tell me what to do? Do you know where you are? This is Vanguard Horizons. My husband runs this place." "Your husband," I repeated, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "Yes, my husband, CEO, Derek Sterling," she shouted, getting right in my face. The smell of her perfume was overpowering, something sweet and cloying, like rotting fruit. "So unless you want to be arrested for trespassing, you better turn your dirty little self around and crawl back to whatever hole you came from." I smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a demolition expert who has just identified the structural weak point of a building and is holding the detonator. "I am not going anywhere," I said. "But you are about to have a very bad day." Chloe's face twisted in rage. She raised her phone again, shoving it toward my face. "Oh, you want to be famous? Let us make you famous. Everyone, look at this crazy woman harassing me. She is attacking me. Help." She was acting. It was a performance for the live stream. But she had picked the wrong co-star. I reached out and calmly, firmly, pushed the phone aside. I lowered my voice to a whisper that only she could hear. "Put the phone down." That was when she snapped. The mask of the victim vanished, replaced by pure, unadulterated malice. She looked at the coffee cup she was holding in her other hand, a large, steaming cup from a nearby cafe. Not the company coffee. "Get away from me, you freak!" she screamed. And then she threw it. She pulled her arm back and launched the contents of the cup directly at me. Time seemed to slow down. I saw the dark brown liquid arc through the air. I saw the steam rising from it. I saw the look of triumph in Chloe's eyes. I did not flinch. I did not duck. I let it hit me. The hot liquid splashed against my chest, soaking into my white t-shirt and my denim jacket. It splattered up onto my neck, burning my skin. The smell of caramel and burnt sugar filled my nose. The cup bounced off my shoulder and clattered to the floor, spinning in a circle. The lobby went deathly silent. Even the music seemed to stop. Every single person in the room, the receptionists, the guards, the accountants, Gabriel, Mr. Henderson froze in horror. They weren't horrified because a woman had been assaulted. They were horrified because they knew who I was, and they had just watched the CEO's mistress throw scalding coffee on the owner of the building. Chloe, however, was oblivious. She gasped theatrically, covering her mouth with her hand. "Oh my God," she wailed, playing to the camera. "She attacked me. She made me spill my coffee. Did you guys see that? She lunged at me." She looked at me, her eyes gleaming with a sick satisfaction. "You are done," she hissed. "You are so done. My husband is going to destroy you for this." I stood there, the sticky liquid dripping down my front. I could feel the heat seeping through to my skin, but strangely, I did not feel the pain. All I felt was a cold, crystal clear clarity. I looked at Gabriel. He was white as a sheet, looking ready to pass out. I looked at Mr. Henderson. He was trembling. Then I looked at Chloe. "Your husband," I said, my voice cutting through the silence like a razor blade. "You keep saying that word. I do not think it means what you think it means." "Shut up," Chloe yelled. "You are going to jail, Derek, baby, help." She was calling for him. She expected her knight in shining armor to come down and save her. "You want Derek?" I asked. Reaching into my pocket, my hand closed around my phone. "Let us get him down here then. I think it is time for a family reunion." The lobby of Vanguard Horizons was a powder keg, and I had just lit the match. I stood my ground, staring into the lens of Chloe Miller's smartphone, refusing to blink or retreat. The air between us was thick with tension, the kind of static charge that precedes a lightning strike. "Turn it off," I said, my voice low but vibrating with a command that usually made site foremen scramble. "And apologize to him, now." Chloe lowered the phone just an inch, peering over the top of it with eyes that held nothing but contempt. She scanned me again, her gaze lingering on the mud dried on the hem of my jeans and the frayed collar of my denim jacket. To her, these were not the marks of hard work. They were the stigmata of failure. "Apologize," she scoffed, the word sounding like a joke in her mouth. "To who help? And who are you to give me orders? Look at you. You look like you just crawled out of a dumpster behind a discount store. Did you sneak in here to steal office supplies? Or are you one of the cleaning lady's relatives looking for a handout?" She did not wait for an answer. She snapped the phone back up to her face, her expression shifting instantly from disgust to a theatrical, wide-eyed fear. It was a masterclass in manipulation. "Oh my God! You guys!" she whined into the camera, her voice pitching up into a distressed tremolo. "I am literally shaking right now. This crazy woman is stalking me. She is blocking my path and shouting at me. I think she is on something. This is what I have to deal with at work. It is so unsafe here for a public figure like me. Can someone please record this, just in case she tries to hurt me?" The audacity was so sharp it almost drew blood. She was weaponizing her audience, turning thousands of invisible strangers into a jury against me. "This is a place of business, not a stage for your vanity," I said, stepping closer. Ignoring the camera. You are in violation of the Vanguard Horizons Employee Handbook. Section 4, Paragraph 2, regarding unauthorized recording on company property. You are also creating a hostile work environment. Put the phone away, or you will be removed. Chloe threw her head back and laughed, a shrill, grating sound that echoed off the high ceilings. The handbook, she mocked, wiping a fake tear from her eye. Did you hear that? Everyone. The bag lady is quoting the handbook, honey. Listen to me closely. She took a step toward me, invading my personal space, her perfume suffocatingly sweet. Her eyes narrowed into slits of pure arrogance. The rules are for people like him. She pointed a sharp acrylic nail at the trembling Mr. Henderson. The rules are for the little people who punch a clock. I do not follow the rules. I make them. Around here, I am the law. You are an intern, I stated flatly. I am the future, she shrieked. And then, the snap occurred. Whether it was my calm demeanor that infuriated her, or simply the need to create a climactic moment for her live stream. Chloe made her move. She held the large paper cup of coffee in her right hand. It was a venti, brimming with hot, dark liquid, with a motion that was too precise to be an accident. She swung her arm forward. Get away from me, she yelled. It happened in slow motion. I saw the lid pop off. I saw the wave of brown liquid launch into the air, catching the light of the chandelier. It was a tidal wave of heat and sugar. Splash. The impact was heavy and wet. The coffee hit me square in the chest, soaking instantly through my white t-shirt and the heavy denim of my jacket. It splashed up onto my chin and neck. The heat was shocking. A sudden, searing bite against my skin that made me gasp. The smell was instant and overwhelming: roasted beans, artificial caramel syrup, and stale milk. The dark stain spread rapidly, turning my crisp white shirt into a translucent, sticky mess. It dripped down the front of my jeans, pooling on the expensive marble floor I had hand-selected in Italy. A collective gasp went through the lobby. It was the sound of air being sucked out of the room. The receptionists covered their mouths. The security guards took a step forward but stopped, paralyzed by confusion. I stood there, liquid dripping from my chin, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. I did not wipe it off. I did not scream. I just felt the heat seeping into my skin, fueling a cold, hard rage in my gut. But Chloe was not done, not even close. Before I could even speak, she let out a piercing scream that sounded like a siren. Ow! Ow! You pushed me, she wailed, dropping the empty cup on the floor and grabbing her own wrist. Oh my God! She attacked me. She shoved me and made me spill my hot coffee all over myself. My hand, it burns. She turned to the camera, thrusting her hand toward the lens. Her hand was perfectly fine, dry and manicured, but she acted as if it had been severed. Look at what you did. She screamed at me, her face twisting into a mask of ugly fury. You ruined my manicure. I just got these done yesterday. Do you know how much these cost? $200. You are going to pay for this. You are going to pay for my nails, my dress, and my emotional distress. She looked around the lobby, playing to the silent, horrified crowd. You are all witnesses. She assaulted me. I want her arrested. Then, she turned back to me, her eyes wild with a power trip that had gone completely off the rails. She stepped into the puddle of coffee, her fake Louboutins making a squelching sound, and got right in my face. You have made the biggest mistake of your miserable life, you peasant, she hissed, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper that carried across the silent room. You think you can just walk in here and disrespect me? Do you have any idea who I am? Do you have any idea who sleeps in my bed every night? I stared at her, the sticky coffee cooling on my skin. Enlighten me. My husband is the CEO of this entire company, she screamed, pointing a finger at the ceiling. Derek Sterling, he owns this building, he owns this city, and he owns me. And when I tell him what you did, he is going to come down here and destroy you. You are dead. Do you hear me? You are finished in this town." The name hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Derek Sterling, my husband, the man who had sworn his vows to me, the man who was currently being paraded around as the husband of a 22-year-old intern who threw coffee on strangers. I looked at the stain on my jacket. It was ruined. It was an Armani coat from a vintage collection, worth more than $5,000. But right now, it was just a rag. I slowly reached into my pocket and pulled out a handkerchief. I wiped a drop of coffee from my cheek, my movements calm, deliberate, and terrifyingly composed. "Derek Sterling," I repeated, testing the weight of the name. "That is right." Chloe smirked, thinking she had won, thinking she had struck fear into my heart. "Scared now." "You should be. He is in a meeting right now. But I am going to call him, and when he gets here, you are going to be begging on your knees." I looked at her, and for a split second, I almost felt sorry for her. She was a moth flying straight into a flamethrower, convinced she was the sun. "You do not need to call him," I said, my voice cutting through her hysteria like a blade. "I think he would want to see this for himself." I reached into my pocket again, but this time, I wasn't reaching for a handkerchief. I was reaching for my phone. It was time to make the call that would end the world as she knew it. The heat of the coffee was beginning to fade, replaced by a sticky cooling sensation that made the fabric of my shirt cling to my skin like a second. Uncomfortable layer. Under normal circumstances, the indignity of having a sugary beverage thrown on me in the middle of a public lobby would have elicited a scream, or at least a flinch. But these were not normal circumstances. This was not just a stain on my clothes. It was a stain on my legacy. And I treated it with the clinical detachment of a surgeon examining a tumor that needed to be excised. I did not scream. I did not recoil. I did not give Chloe Miller the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. Instead, I slowly reached into my pocket and retrieved a linen handkerchief. With deliberate, measured movements, I wiped a single droplet of dark liquid from my jawline. My hand was steady. My pulse was slow. The silence in the lobby was absolute. A heavy blanket that smothered the hum of the air conditioning and the distant noise of the city outside. Every pair of eyes in the room, from the terrified receptionists to the stunned delivery drivers, was locked on me. They were waiting for the explosion. They were waiting for the crazy lady in the dirty boots to attack the young, glamorous intern. They had no idea that the explosion was not going to be physical. It was going to be nuclear. Gabriel Stone moved first. My peripheral vision caught the flash of his charcoal suit as he stepped forward. His body tense, his hands raising instinctively to intervene. He was a protector by nature, and seeing his oldest friend assaulted had clearly overridden his lawyerly caution. He opened his mouth, likely to call security or to verbally eviscerate Chloe, but I cut him off before he could utter a syllable. I turned my head slightly and locked eyes with him. I gave him a single, sharp look. It was a look we had developed over 2 decades of friendship, a look that said, "Stand down. This is my kill." Gabriel froze. He saw the cold fire in my eyes, a terrifying calmness that he knew meant I had moved past anger and into the realm of total strategic destruction. He slowly lowered his hands, nodded imperceptibly, and stepped back into the shadows of the pillar. He would let me handle this. I turned my attention back to Chloe. She was panting slightly, her chest heaving beneath the tight fabric of her pink dress. The adrenaline of her act was still coursing through her veins, and her eyes were wide with a manic mixture of fear and triumph. She held her phone up like a shield, the camera lens a black eye staring unblinkingly at my ruined outfit. "You are crazy," she breathed, playing to her audience, though her voice wavered slightly. "Stay back. My husband will have you arrested." I took a step toward her. The squelch of my boot in the puddle of coffee was the only sound in the room. "I just want to be absolutely clear," I said, my voice soft, devoid of inflection. "You stated, for the record, that your husband is the CEO of this company. Is that correct?" Chloe scoffed, regaining her bravado. She flipped her hair, sending a wave of cloying perfume into the space between us. Are you deaf as well as stupid as Derek Sterling, the man who runs this city? He is my husband. He bought me this dress. He bought me this bag. And in about 10 minutes, he is going to come down here and toss you out on the street like the trash you are. Derek Sterling, I repeated, ensuring the name echoed clearly for everyone to hear. And you are his wife. His wife? His soulmate. His everything, Chloe declared, smirking at her phone screen. We are practically married. The ring is just a formality at this point. He told me last night that he is leaving his boring, dead weight of an ex-wife to be with me. That was the confirmation I needed. She had just dug her own grave, climbed into it, and pulled the dirt over her head. I see, I said. Well, if he is your husband, surely he would want to know that his beloved wife has been assaulted by a stranger in his own lobby. Chloe blinked, confused by my logic. What? You said I attacked you, I replied calmly, pulling my smartphone from the pocket of my jeans. You said I am a threat. If I were the wife of the CEO, I would expect him to come to my rescue immediately. Let us call him. I tapped the screen. My thumb hovered over the contact labeled hubby. I had not changed it. It seemed like a relic from a different life now. A cruel joke. I pressed the call button and immediately hit the speaker icon. I held the phone up, level with my face, turning the volume to the maximum setting. The sound of the ringing tone pierced the silence of the lobby. Brrring, brrring. Chloe looked at me. Her brow furrowed. She looked at her own phone, then at mine. A flicker of doubt crossed her face, but she quickly shook it off. She likely assumed I was calling the main switchboard, or perhaps security. She could not conceive of a world where the woman in the mud-stained denim jacket had the personal cell phone number of Derek Sterling. Brrring, brrring. The wait was agonizing. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3 rings. I watched Chloe's face. She was smirking, whispering something to her live stream about how pathetic I was. Then, the ringing stopped. The line connected. Hey, babe. Derek's voice filled the lobby. It was crisp, clear, and sickeningly affectionate. It was the voice he used when he wanted something, the voice he had used to charm my father, the board, and me. Listen, I am in the middle of a chaotic negotiation with the suppliers right now, Derek continued, his tone smooth and practiced. It is a total war zone here, but I'm thinking about you. I promise. As soon as I wrap this up, I will make it up to you. Maybe that necklace you were looking at? I love you. The lobby was so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. Chloe's eyes lit up. A flush of victory spread across her cheeks. She was so deluded, so wrapped up in her own narrative, that she believed Derek was speaking to her. She thought he had somehow seen her live stream, or that this was cosmic validation of her status. She turned to the crowd, mouthing, "See? He calls me babe." She pointed at the phone in my hand as if it were a prop in her play. I let the silence hang for 3 seconds. 3 seconds to let his lies settle into the air like dust. 3 seconds for Gabriel to shake his head in disgust. 3 seconds for Chloe to gloat. Then, I spoke. You do not need to make it up to me later. Derek, I said. My voice was ice. It was the voice of a judge delivering a death sentence. There was a pause on the other end of the line, a confused, heavy silence. You can skip the necklace, I continued. My eyes locked on Chloe's triumphant face. In fact, you can skip the negotiation, because we both know there is no negotiation. You are not in a meeting. You are likely in your office, drinking the scotch my father gave you. Who is this? Derek's voice changed instantly. The charm evaporated, replaced by a sharp, defensive edge. How did you get this number? Is this a prank? Chloe's smile faltered. She looked at the phone, then at me. The confusion was starting to creep in. Why was he asking who it was? It is no prank, darling, I said, putting a venomous emphasis on the endearment. I am standing in the lobby of Vanguard Horizons, and I think you should come down here immediately. The lobby? Derek sounded baffled. Why, who is this? I am hanging up. If you hang up, you lose everything, I snapped. The authority in my voice was undeniable. It was the voice of the chairwoman. Derek went silent. He recognized the tone. Even through the distortion of the speakerphone, he recognized the steel in my voice. You need to come down here, I said, enunciating every word. Because there is a young woman here, wearing a very short pink dress and holding a fake Hermes bag. She just threw a cup of scalding hot coffee all over me. I paused, letting the information sink in. And, I added, delivering the final blow, she is loudly proclaiming to your entire staff and to the internet that she is your wife. The reaction on the other end was visceral. We heard a loud crash. It sounded like a heavy leather executive chair being knocked over backward. Then came the sound of something shattering, perhaps a glass or a bottle. What? Derek's voice was a high-pitched squeak of panic. It was the sound of a man who had just realized the ground was opening up beneath his feet. What did you say? Who threw coffee? What wife? Chloe's face went pale. The blood drained from her skin so fast she looked like a wax doll. She stared at the phone in my hand as if it were a venomous snake. She recognized the panic in his voice. She recognized the fear. This was not the voice of her powerful, commanding lover. This was the voice of a terrified child. She says her name is Chloe, I said, looking directly at the girl. And she says you bought her the dress, and the condo, and that you are leaving your dead weight of an ex-wife for her. No, Derek shouted. The desperation was palpable. Belinda, is that you? Oh my God. Belinda, wait. I do not know what you are talking about. I do not know any Chloe. I am coming down. Do not move. Do not listen to anyone. Belinda. The name hung in the air. Chloe dropped her phone. It hit the marble floor with a crack. But she did not seem to notice. Her mouth fell open. She looked from me, the woman in the dirty denim, to the phone, and back again. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Belinda. Belinda Ashford. The owner. The heiress. The wife. I will give you 5 minutes. Derek, I said, my voice calm and deadly. If you are not in this lobby in 5 minutes, I will have Gabriel walk the divorce papers up to your office. And believe me, he has them ready. I am coming, I am running, Derek screamed. Belinda, please, it is a misunderstanding, I swear. I tapped the red button, ending the call. The silence that returned to the lobby was different now. It was not the silence of confusion, it was the silence of awe. I lowered the phone and looked at Chloe. She was trembling. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely keep them at her sides. The arrogance was gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated terror. She looked at the stain on my shirt, realizing for the first time that she had not just assaulted a stranger, she had assaulted the one woman in the world who could take away everything she thought she owned. You, she whispered, her voice barely audible. You are... I am the dead weight, I said cold, a small, humorless smile playing on my lips. And you, my dear, are in a significant amount of trouble. I turned to Gabriel, who was now stepping out of the shadows, a look of grim satisfaction on his face. Gabriel, I said, check the time. 10:42, Madam Chairwoman, Gabriel replied, his voice ringing out clearly. Good, I said. Let us see how fast my husband can run. The digital numbers on the wall clock above the security desk flickered. It had been exactly 4 minutes and 45 seconds since I hung up the phone. The lobby was suspended in a state of suffocating anticipation. No one moved. No one spoke. The only sound was the low hum of the ventilation system and the ragged, shallow breathing of Chloe Miller. She stood frozen near the reception desk, her face a portrait of cognitive dissonance, part of her brain. The rational part that must have existed somewhere beneath the layers of hairspray and narcissism knew she was doomed. She had heard the terror in Derek's voice. She had seen the way Gabriel Stone looked at her, but the other part, the part that had been fed a diet of lies and luxury for months, refused to let go of the fantasy. She was still clutching her fake Hermes bag like a lifeline, her eyes darting between the elevator bank and me, Then, the bell rang. It was a soft, melodious chime that usually signaled the arrival of a VIP guest or a board member. Today, it sounded like the tolling of a funeral bell. The brushed steel doors of the private executive elevator slid open with a smooth hiss. Derek Sterling burst into the lobby. I had not seen my husband in 3 months. The last time I saw him, he was standing on the tarmac at O'Hare, waving goodbye as I boarded the plane to Peru. He had looked like a vision of corporate perfection, then tailored navy suit, hair perfectly coiffed, a confident smile that promised he would take care of everything. The man who stumbled out of the elevator now was a stranger. His tie was loosened and crooked, pulled to the side as if he had tried to rip it off in a panic. His shirt was untucked at the back, sweat visible. Heavy beads of perspiration glistened on his forehead and upper lip, ruining the matte finish of his expensive foundation. His eyes were wide and darting, scanning the room with the frantic energy of a trapped animal. He did not look like a CEO. He looked like a fugitive. He saw us immediately. It was hard to miss the tableau in the center of the room, the circle of silent employees, the spilled coffee, the girl in the neon pink dress, and the woman in the dirty work boots. For a heartbeat, he froze. His gaze locked onto me, and I saw the color drain from his face until he was the shade of old parchment. But Chloe did not see the fear. She only saw the man. "Derek," she squealed. The sound tore through the tension like a shriek. Chloe's survival instinct kicked in, but it was miscalibrated. Instead of running away, she ran toward the only source of power she knew. She threw herself at him, her heels clicking frantically on the marble. "Baby, thank God you are here," she cried, latching onto his arm with a desperate grip. She buried her face in his shoulder, smearing makeup onto his jacket. "Look at her. Look at that crazy woman. She is lying. She threw coffee on herself just to frame me. You have to tell them. Derek, tell them who I am. Tell them you love me." She was nuzzling him, trying to invoke the intimacy they clearly shared, trying to remind him of whatever whispered promises he had made in the dark. She was oblivious to the fact that she was hugging a bomb that was about to detonate. Derek looked down at her. His eyes were not filled with love. They were filled with a pure, unadulterated revulsion. To him, she was no longer a trophy or a distraction. She was evidence. She was a liability. She was the anchor dragging him down to the bottom of the ocean, and he needed to cut the rope. "Get off me!" Derek roared. The violence of his reaction shocked everyone. He didn't just pull away. He shoved her. He planted his hand on her shoulder and pushed with the force of a man trying to repel a physical attack. Chloe, caught off guard and unbalanced on her cheap stilettos, went flying backward. She flailed, her arms pinwheeling, before she crashed hard onto the polished floor. Her phone skittered away, spinning across the tiles. "Ow, Derek!" she gasped, looking up at him from the ground, her eyes wide with betrayal. "What are you doing?" Derek did not even look at her. He stepped over her legs as if she were a piece of debris. He was moving toward me with a speed that bordered on manic. He stopped 2 feet in front of me. He looked at my face, at the mud on my forehead, and then at the dark, sticky stain spreading across the chest of my white t-shirt. His chest was heaving. He smelled of scotch and fear. Then, he did something that made the entire lobby gasp in unison. He dropped to his knees, Derek Sterling, the man who prided himself on never bowing to anyone, the man who had insisted we install a raised platform in his office so he could look down on visitors, collapsed onto the dirty floor at my feet. "Belinda," he choked out, his voice trembling. "Oh my God. Belinda, look at you. You are a mess." He reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a pocket square. It was silk, patterned with tiny anchors, likely costing $200. With frantic, jerky movements, he began to dab at the coffee stain on my shirt. "I am so sorry," he babbled, scrubbing at the fabric uselessly. "This is terrible. Who did this? Did the staff do this? I will fire everyone. I will burn this whole department down. Are you burned? Do you need a doctor? Gabriel, call a doctor." I stood perfectly still, looking down at the top of his head. I could see the thinning spot he tried so hard to hide with expensive treatments. I felt nothing but a cold, distant curiosity. It was like watching a cockroach scurry when the lights turned on. "Stop it, Derek," I said quietly. He did not stop. He was scrubbing harder now, spreading the stain, his hands shaking violently. "I can fix this. I can fix it, honey. I will buy you a new shirt. I will buy you a new coat. 10 coats. Whatever you want. Just, why didn't you tell me you were coming home? I would have sent the car. I would have met you at the tarmac." "I wanted to surprise you," I said, my voice flat. "Happy anniversary." Derek flinched as if I had struck him. He looked up at me, his eyes pleading, swimming with fake tears. "Happy anniversary, baby. I missed you so much. It has been hell without you. I have just been working, non-stop, just working for us, for our future." "Working?" I asked, tilting my head slightly. From the floor, a shrill, broken voice cut in. "Working," Chloe screamed. She pulled herself up to a sitting position. Her pink dress was twisted, her hair was a mess, and her mascara was running down her cheeks in black streaks. But the confusion in her eyes was gone, replaced by the fury of a woman scorned. "Is that what you call it?" Chloe shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at him. "Working." Derek whipped his head around, his face contorted with rage. "Shut up," he bellowed at her. "Security. Get this lunatic out of here. She is harassing my wife." He turned back to me, clutching the hem of my jacket. "Belinda, listen to me. I do not know who this girl is. She is crazy. She must be a stalker. You know how it is with these high-profile positions. They get obsessed. She probably followed me from a charity event or something. I have never seen her before in my life." The lie was so bold, so pathetic, that it was almost impressive. He was gambling everything in the hope that I was stupid, or that I loved him enough to be blind. "You have never seen her?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Never," Derek swore, holding up his hand as if taking an oath. "I swear on my mother's grave. I swear on our marriage. She is a complete stranger." Chloe let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. It was a guttural noise of pure disbelief. She scrambled to her feet. Ignoring the pain in her ankle, she marched toward us, limping slightly, but her eyes were blazing with fire. "A stranger!" she yelled, getting right into his face. "You swear on your mother's grave, Derek. You lying piece of filth. You were inside me 6 hours ago." The collective intake of breath from the audience sucked the oxygen out of the room. Derek's face turned a shade of purple I had never seen before. "You shut your mouth. You are delusional." "Delusional," Chloe laughed maniacally. She turned to me, her eyes wild. "He is lying to you. He is a liar." "Do you want to know where he was last night?" "He was at the Mandarin Oriental. Suite 404. He ordered room service oysters and champagne. He told me he hates oysters, but he eats them because they make him feel virile. Is that the talk of a stranger?" Derek looked like he was having a stroke. He tried to stand up, but his legs seemed to fail him, and he remained kneeling, trapped between his wife and his mistress. "And the condo," Chloe continued. Relentless now. She was burning the house down, and she didn't care if she was inside it. "He said he didn't know me. Then who signed the lease on the penthouse in Hudson Yards? Who picked out the white leather sofa? Who gave me the key card to the private elevator?" She reached into her cleavage and pulled out a key card attached to a gold lanyard. She threw it at him. It bounced off his chest and landed on the floor next to my boot. It was a Vanguard Horizons executive access card, stamped with the highest security clearance. "Explain that, Derek," she screamed. "Explain why a stranger has a master key to your office." Derek stared at the key card. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked at me, his eyes wide and terrified, silently begging me not to believe the evidence of my own eyes. "Belinda," he whispered, his voice cracking. "She stole it. She must have stolen it. I lost my keycard last week. I put in a report." Ask Gabriel. I put in a report. I looked at him. I looked at the man I had married. I looked at the pathetic, sweating, lying creature kneeling in the dirt, trying to gaslight me in front of 50 witnesses. It was pitiful. Gabriel, I called out softly. Gabriel Stone stepped forward from the pillar. He moved with the silent grace of an executioner. He held a thin manila folder in his hand. He did not look at Derek. He looked only at me. Yes, Madam Chairwoman, Gabriel said. Did Mr. Sterling file a report for a lost keycard last week? I asked. No, ma'am, Gabriel said, his voice ringing clear and true. In fact, Mr. Sterling requested a duplicate keycard 3 months ago, specifically authorized for guest access. It was issued to Miss Chloe Miller. Derek flinched. Gabriel, what are you doing? Whose side are you on? Gabriel ignored him. He walked up to me and extended the folder. I also took the liberty of compiling the financial records you requested regarding the suspicious activity in the marketing budget. I believe this is relevant to the current conversation. I took the folder. It was light, but it carried the weight of a guillotine blade. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a credit card statement for the corporate American Express Black Card, the card that was supposed to be used for emergency company expenses only. I scanned the list. It was a litany of excess. Tiffany Company, $12,000. Mandarin Oriental, $4,000. Porsche dealership lease down payment, $15,000. The agonizingly specific boutique where Chloe's dress likely came from, $2,000. I looked down at Derek. He was watching me read the document, and I could see the exact moment hope died in his eyes. He knew what was on that paper. He knew there was no lie big enough to cover this. You said you didn't know her, I said, my voice conversational, almost pleasant. Belinda, please, he whimpered, grabbing my hand. His palms were clammy. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. It meant nothing. She meant nothing. I was lonely. You were gone for so long. I am a man. I have needs. Needs, I repeated. I pulled my hand away from his grasp as if he were contagious. I turned the folder around so that the page faced him. I pointed to a line item near the bottom. Does your need include paying the rent for a luxury condo in Hudson Yards, using the company's emergency liquidity fund? I asked. Derek stared at the number. And here, I pointed to another line. Does your need include a monthly stipend of $5,000 transferred to an account under the name Chloe Miller Consulting? I looked over at Chloe. She had stopped screaming. She was staring at the paper, too. You put me on the payroll, she whispered, confused. You said that money was from your personal trust fund. He lied to you. Too, honey, I said to her, not unkindly. He paid for your lifestyle with my money, my company's money, which means, technically, I looked back at Derek, my eyes hardening into diamonds. Technically, you haven't just cheated on your wife, Derek, you have embezzled corporate funds to facilitate it. Do you know what the federal prison sentence is for embezzlement over $100,000? Derek slumped back on his heels. He looked small. He looked broken. I can explain, he whispered, but the fight was gone. I am sure you can, I said, closing the folder with a sharp snap. But you won't be explaining it to me. You will be explaining it to the FBI. I turned to Gabriel. Gabriel, I said, is the file ready? It is, ma'am, Gabriel replied, a small, grim smile playing on his lips. And Agent Smith is waiting in the conference room. Derek's head snapped up. Agent Smith, who is Agent Smith? I smiled down at my husband. You really didn't think I spent 3 months in Peru just looking at rocks, did you? The folder Gabriel Stone had handed me was not just a collection of papers. It was an autopsy of my marriage and a blueprint of a crime scene. I held it in my hands, feeling the weight of the evidence. The lobby was silent, save for the ragged breathing of Derek Sterling and the sniffles of Chloe Miller, who was standing there looking like a confused child who had wandered into the middle of a highway. I did not scream. I did not throw the papers in Derek's face. That would have been too emotional, too messy. Instead, I opened the folder with the precision of a forensic accountant. I pulled out a large, fold-out diagram that Gabriel had printed on A3 paper. It was a flowchart, a complex web of arrows, boxes, and numbers that detailed the financial hemorrhage of Vanguard Horizons. I held it up, not for Derek to see, but for the crowd, for the employees who had been denied raises, for the contractors like Mr. Henderson who were being paid late, and for the security cameras that were undoubtedly recording this for posterity. "You asked for an explanation," I said, my voice cutting through the air like a cold wind. "You claimed this was all a misunderstanding. You claimed you did not know this woman. But the numbers, Derek, they do not lie. People lie. Numbers just stare back at you." I turned to Chloe. She was wiping mascara from her cheeks, looking at me with a mixture of fear and defiance. "Tell me, Miss Miller," I asked, keeping my tone deceptively conversational. "Who is your father?" Chloe blinked, taken aback by the sudden change in topic. "What, my dad? What does he have to do with this?" "Humor me," I said. "His name is Marcus Miller," Chloe said, puffing out her chest slightly, clutching at the shreds of her status. "He owns Titan Structures. He is a big deal in this city. Bigger than you." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Titan Structures was our direct competitor. They were a company known for cutting corners, using cheap materials, and underbidding us on every major municipal project. "Titan Structures," I repeated. "Thank you. That explains quite a bit." I looked down at Derek. He was sweating profusely now, his eyes fixed on the flowchart in my hand. He knew exactly what I had figured out. "You see," I addressed the room, "for the last 6 months, Vanguard Horizons has been bleeding capital. Specifically from the Green City Initiative, our flagship sustainable housing project. I could not figure out where the money was going. The invoices were vague. Consulting fees? Brand activation? Market research? It was all very nebulous." I took a step toward Chloe. "And then I saw the names of the vendors receiving these payments," I said, pulling a stack of invoices from the folder. "Company A is called Pink Sky Consulting. Company B is Glitter Media Group. Company C is Chloe M. Holdings." Chloe's eyes widened. "Hey, that is my company. Derek helped me set it up. He said it was for my brand management, for my influencer career." "Brand management," I said dryly. "And did you do any brand management for Vanguard Horizons, Miss Miller? Did you consult on our architectural designs? Did you run focus groups for our solar panel implementation?" "Well, no," Chloe stammered, looking at Derek for help. "Derek said I just needed to be the face. He said I just needed to sign the papers to make it official." "To sign the papers," I echoed. "And did you read those papers, Chloe?" "Derek said they were boring legal stuff." She defended herself, her voice rising in pitch. "He said I did not need to worry my pretty little head about it. He said he handled everything. I just signed where the little stickers were." I let out a short, sharp laugh. It was a sound devoid of humor. "Congratulations, Miss Miller," I said. "You have just admitted, in front of 50 witnesses, to being the sole signatory and legal owner of 3 shell companies that have received illegal transfers of company funds. You did not just sign boring legal stuff, you signed invoices billing Vanguard Horizons for services that were never rendered." I turned the page of the flowchart, revealing the grand total at the bottom in bold red ink. "In the last 6 months alone," I announced, my voice booming across the lobby, "Derek Sterling has authorized the transfer of $15 million into accounts controlled by Chloe Miller." The number hung in the air. $15 million. The gasp from the crowd was audible. This was not just a scandal. This was a felony. This was grand larceny on a massive scale. $15 million, I repeated, looking down at Derek. "You stole $15 million from the Green City project. That money was meant for low-income housing. It was meant for solar grids for schools. And you used it to buy condos, fake jewelry, and to fund the lifestyle of a rival's daughter. Derek scrambled to his feet. He looked wild, unhinged. The mask of the charming CEO had completely disintegrated, revealing the desperate criminal underneath. "It is not what it looks like," Derek shouted, pointing a shaking finger at Chloe. "She made me do it. It was her idea. She is Marcus Miller's daughter. She seduced me. She blackmailed me. She said if I did not pay her, she would leak company secrets to her father. I am the victim here. Belinda." I was trying to protect the company. It was a breathtaking pivot. He was throwing his mistress under the bus so fast, he nearly gave himself whiplash. Chloe stood there, her mouth agape. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She looked at Derek, the man who had whispered promises of love and marriage to her only hours before, the man she thought was her ticket to the high life, and now, he was framing her. "What?" Chloe shrieked. "Blackmail. Are you insane? You came to me. You told me you hated your wife. You told me you needed to hide the money because of the divorce settlement. You said if we put it in my name, Belinda could not touch it." "Liar," Derek screamed, his face turning purple. "She is a liar. Look at her. She is a gold digger. She planned this whole thing." "And you," I interrupted, looking at Chloe. "You were foolish enough to sign your name on every single document. Derek did not sign anything. Did he? His name is not on the incorporation papers for Pink Sky Consulting. His name is not on the lease for the condo. It is all you. Chloe, legally speaking, you are the one who received the stolen funds. Derek just authorized the payments to a vendor. You are the one holding the bag." Chloe's face went white. She realized, with terrifying clarity, that she was not the queen. She was not even the princess. She was Patsy. She was the scapegoat. Derek had set her up from day one. He had used her vanity and her greed to build a shield for himself. If the scheme was discovered, she would go to jail. And he could claim, just as he was doing now, that he was a victim of corporate espionage and blackmail. You bastard!" Chloe screamed. The sound that came out of her throat was primal. It was the sound of a trapped animal realizing it had been tricked. She did not run away. She did not cry. She attacked. Chloe lunged at Derek. She moved with a speed and ferocity that caught everyone off guard. She tackled him, her fake nails digging into the expensive fabric of his suit. They crashed into the reception desk, knocking over a vase of lilies. "You set me up!" she screamed, clawing at his face. "I am not going to jail for you. I am not going to jail." "Get off me, you crazy witch!" Derek yelled, trying to push her away. But she was clinging to him like a limpet. It was a pathetic, grotesque scene. The CEO and the intern, rolling on the marble floor amidst spilled water and broken flowers, fighting like stray dogs. The employees watched in stunned silence, phones raised, recording every second of the humiliating spectacle. Gabriel started to move forward to separate them, but I held up a hand. "Let them finish," I said softly. The truth always comes out when the rats start eating each other. Chloe managed to scramble back, her dress torn, her hair a bird's nest. She reached into her bra, a hiding place Derek likely knew well, and pulled out her phone. The screen was cracked, but it was still working. "You think you can pin this on me?" she panted, holding the phone up like a weapon. "You think I am just some stupid blonde. My daddy taught me one thing. Derek, always keep receipts." She tapped the screen furiously. Her thumb hovered over a file. "I recorded you," she hissed. "I recorded everything. Because I knew, deep down, I knew you were too slippery to trust." She hit play and held the phone up to the microphone on the reception desk, amplifying the sound through the lobby's speaker system. The audio was crystal clear. It was the sound of bedsheets rustling, followed by Derek's voice relaxed, arrogant, and unmistakably guilty. "Just sign the papers. Babe, stop asking questions. It is just a tax loophole. Once the money is in the Pink Sky account, we can move it to the Cayman Islands. Belinda will never know. She is too busy playing in the mud with the poor people in Peru to notice $15 million missing. We will be billionaires. Chloe, and once the divorce is final, I will leave her with nothing but her precious rocks." The recording ended. The silence in the lobby was deafening. Derek stopped struggling. He lay on the floor, his shirt ripped open, scratches on his face, staring up at the ceiling. He knew it was over. His own voice had just convicted him. He had not only admitted to the embezzlement, but also to the premeditated malice against me. Chloe stood over him, heaving, looking victorious yet destroyed. She had proven he was a liar, but in doing so, she had also cemented her own guilt as an accomplice. "There," Chloe spat, wiping blood from a scratch on her cheek. "Blackmail that." I slowly clapped my hands. It was a slow, rhythmic applause that echoed through the silent lobby. Clap, clap, clap. "Bravo," I said. "Truly, a performance for the ages." I walked over to where they were sprawled. I looked down at Derek, then at Chloe. "You have both been very helpful," I said. "You have saved the district attorney months of investigation. We have the financial trail." I waved the folder. "And we have the confession." I pointed to Chloe's phone. Derek struggled to sit up. "Belinda, that was taken out of context. I was role-playing. It was a fantasy." "Save it for the judge, Derek," I said. "And you, Chloe, do not think for a second that recording absolves you. You still spent the money. You still signed the papers. You are just as guilty as he is." Chloe's face crumbled. "But I helped you. I exposed him." "You exposed him to save your own skin," I corrected. "That is not heroism. That is survival. And frankly, you are not very good at it." I turned to Gabriel. "Gabriel, I believe we have seen enough," I said. "Please invite our guests from the Bureau to join us. I think they have enough probable cause to make an arrest right now." "Wait." Derek scrambled to his knees again, desperation making him frantic. "You cannot do this. I am the CEO. You cannot arrest the CEO in his own lobby. Think of the stock price, Belinda. Think of the family name." I looked at him, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of genuine pity, not for him, but for the man I thought he was. "The stock price will recover," I said coldly. "The family name will survive. But you are done." But Derek was not ready to surrender. He was a narcissist, and narcissists never go down without trying to burn the world with them. He looked at me, then at the security guards who were closing in, and a dangerous glint appeared in his eyes. He realized begging was not working. He realized the charm was dead, so he decided to play his final, ugliest card. He stood up, brushing the glass shards from his pants. He straightened his tie, though it was hopeless. He looked at me with a sneer that twisted his handsome face into something demonic. "You think you have won?" He laughed, a low, menacing sound. "You think you can just walk back in here after 3 months and kick me out? You think you are the one in charge?" He reached into his inner jacket pocket. For a second, the security guards tensed, thinking he had a weapon, but he pulled out a document. It was folded and worn, as if he had been carrying it around for a long time. "You are forgetting one thing, my dear wife," Derek said, his voice dripping with malice. "You are forgetting about your mental health." He held up the document. "This," he announced to the room, "is a medical competency evaluation, signed by Dr. Eris, a very reputable psychiatrist. It states that due to your erratic behavior and your obsession with running away to dangerous countries, you are mentally unfit to lead this company." He took a step toward me, regaining his swagger. "I filed this with the board this morning." He lied, or perhaps he had, as a contingency plan. "As your husband and legal guardian in the event of incapacitation, I have power of attorney, which means, Belinda, you cannot fire me. In fact, I can have you committed." He looked at the security guards. "Officers," he barked, pointing a finger at me. "Remove this woman from the building. She is having a psychotic break. She is a danger to herself and others. Take her to St. Jude's psychiatric ward immediately." The guards hesitated. They looked at me, the woman who signed their paychecks. They looked at Derek, the man who had been terrorizing them for months. "Do it!" Derek screamed, his veins bulging in his neck. "I am the CEO. I gave you an order." It was a gamble, a desperate, insane gamble. He was trying to use his authority to stage a coup in real time. I stood there, watching him flail. He really thought a piece of paper and a loud voice could erase $15 million of theft. "You really are pathetic," I whispered. But before I could say anything else, a shadow moved in front of me. Gabriel Stone stepped between me and Derek. He did not look tired anymore. He looked like a tank in a three-piece suit. He crossed his arms over his chest and looked down at Derek. "I would not do that if I were you." "Derek," Gabriel rumbled. "Get out of my way." "Gabriel," Derek spat, "or I will fire you too." "You cannot fire me," Gabriel said calmly, "and you certainly cannot commit the chairwoman based on a forged document from a doctor who lost his license 3 years ago for prescription fraud." Derek froze. How did you know?" "I am the chief legal officer," Gabriel smiled, and it was the sharpest thing in the room. "I know everything, and there is one more thing you seem to have forgotten about your power grab." "What?" Derek snarled. "I have the proxy votes. I have the majority." "Do you?" Gabriel asked. "Are you sure about that?" The spectacle of the brawl was over, ended not by a referee's whistle but by the brute force of the building's security team. 2 large guards, men with necks thick as tree trunks, hauled Chloe Miller away from Derek. She was kicking and screaming, her heels lost, her pink dress torn at the shoulder, a stream of invective pouring from her mouth that would have made a sailor blush. They dragged her to the side, forcing her into a chair near the reception desk, where she slumped, sobbing into her hands, a broken doll amidst the wreckage of her own ambition. Derek Sterling, however, was not dragged. He shoved the guards away with a violent jerk of his arms. He stood up, breathing heavily, his chest heaving beneath his ruined shirt. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair, slicking it back from his forehead. He looked at the blood from Chloe's scratch on his cheek, then wiped it away with the back of his hand, staring at the red smear as if it were a foreign object. Then, a change came over him. It was terrifying to watch. The panic, the desperation, the pathetic pleading of the cheating husband had all evaporated. In its place, a cold, hard mask descended over his features. It was the face I had seen him wear during hostile takeovers, the face of a man who had decided that if he could not charm his way out of a corner, he would simply burn the building down with everyone inside. He straightened his jacket, he adjusted his tie, tightening the knot with deliberate, jerky movements. He looked at the employees recording him on their phones. Then he looked at me. His eyes were no longer pleading. They were dead. They were the eyes of a shark that smelled blood in the water. "You think you have me cornered, don't you?" Derek said. His voice was no longer a shout, but a low, dangerous growl that carried easily in the silent lobby. "You think because you found some receipts and recorded a little pillow talk. You have won. You always were naive. Belinda, you think business is about morality. You think it is about right and wrong." He took a step toward me. Gabriel Stone tensed, shifting his weight, ready to intercept. But Derek stopped 10 feet away. He spread his arms wide, encompassing the lobby, the building, the city. "Business is about power," Derek declared. "Pure and simple. And right now, in this building, I am the power." "You are a thief," I said calmly, though my heart was hammering against my ribs. "And you are fired." Derek threw his head back and laughed. It was a dry, barking sound. "Fired," he mocked. "By whom?" "By you. A woman who has been missing for 3 months. A woman who abandoned her post to go play in the mud." He turned to the crowd, addressing the employees, the security guards, and the live stream audience that was undoubtedly watching this drama unfold. He pointed a finger at me, transforming me from the victim into the accused. "Look at her," Derek shouted. "Look at the chairwoman of Vanguard Horizons. She is filthy. She is disheveled. She is wearing rags. Does this look like a leader to you? Or does this look like someone who has lost her grip on reality? He was pivoting. He knew the embezzlement charge would stick eventually, but he needed to survive the next 10 minutes. He needed to retain control of the building. Belinda has not been working in Peru, Derek lied, his voice dripping with false concern. She has been suffering from a severe mental breakdown. That is why she left. That is why she disappeared. She ran away because she could not handle the pressure of the legacy her father left her. She has been wandering the mountains, delusional, paranoid, and unstable. That is a lie, Gabriel said, his voice deep and authoritative. We have the travel logs. We have the project reports. We have a medical evaluation, Derek roared, cutting him off. He reached into his jacket pocket again, pulling out the folded document he had threatened me with earlier. He held it up like a holy writ. This is a formal competency assessment, signed and notarized. It states clearly that Belinda Ashford is suffering from acute stress psychosis and is unfit to make executive decisions. It grants me, her husband, full power of attorney over her assets and her position until she is deemed well. He turned his gaze to the head of security. A man named Brock. I knew Brock, or I thought I did. He was a former military policeman I had hired 5 years ago. But as I looked at him now, I saw him shift uncomfortably. I saw him avoid my eyes and look at Derek. I realized then how deep the rot went. Derek had not just been stealing money, he had been buying loyalty. Brock, Derek barked. You have your orders. The board of directors met at 8 o'clock this morning in an emergency session. Based on this medical evidence and her prolonged absence, they voted unanimously to appoint me as the permanent chairman and CEO of Vanguard Horizons. Effective immediately, I am the legal head of this company. It was a bluff. It had to be a bluff. The board would never meet without notifying me. But the employees didn't know that. The security guards didn't know that. To them, Derek was the man who signed the bonus checks. He was the man who had been here every day while I was gone. This woman, Derek pointed at me again, his finger shaking with rage, is a trespasser. She is a disturbed individual who has assaulted a guest, Miss Miller, and created a scene. She is a danger to herself and to the staff. He took a deep breath, his eyes locking onto Brock. Remove her, Derek ordered. Escort Mrs. Ashford out of the building. If she resists, restrain her. Take her directly to St. Jude's Hospital for a 72-hour psychiatric hold. I have already called ahead. The silence in the lobby was absolute. It was the silence of a held breath. Brock hesitated. He looked at me, standing there in my dirty denim, looking every bit the part Derek had painted tired, manic, out of place. Then he looked at Derek, the man in the suit, the man who exuded authority. Mr. Sterling, Brock said, his voice gruff. She is the owner. I am the owner, Derek screamed, his face turning red. I just told you, the board voted, I have the papers, do your job. Brock, or you are fired. And not just fired, I will make sure you lose your pension. I will make sure you never work in security again. The threat hung in the air. Money. It always came down to money. Brock set his jaw. He made his choice. I am sorry. Mrs. Ashford, Brock said, stepping forward. He signaled to 2 other guards, men I did not recognize, likely new hires brought in by Derek. Please come with us quietly, ma'am. We do not want to make this harder than it needs to be. They moved toward me. The heavy thud of their boots on the marble floor echoed the beating of my heart. This was happening. My husband was actually going to have me dragged out of my own building and thrown into a mental ward to cover up his crimes. It was diabolical. It was insane. And it was working. I stood my ground. I did not step back. I lifted my chin, channeling every ounce of dignity my father had instilled in me. If you touch me, I said, my voice quiet but steely, you will be committing assault and kidnapping. Think very carefully about your next step. The guards faltered for a fraction of a second, but Derek was behind them, hissing like a snake. She is crazy, do not listen to her. Grab her, One of the new guards reached out. His hand was inches from my arm. Then, a wall of gray wool slammed into place between us. Gabriel Stone moved with a speed that belied his calm demeanor. He stepped in front of me, planting his feet wide, his broad shoulders creating a physical barrier between me and the security team. He did not raise his fists. He did not shout. He simply stood there, an immovable object in a three-piece suit. "That is enough," Gabriel said. His voice was not loud, but it had the resonance of a gavel striking a sounding block. "You take one more step, and I will have you all up on federal charges for conspiracy to kidnap. Get out of the way." "Gabriel," Derek shouted, moving around the desk to stand behind his enforcement squad. "You are just a lawyer. You have no authority here. I fired you 5 minutes ago." "You cannot fire me," Gabriel repeated, his gaze locked on Brock. "And you certainly cannot arrest the chairwoman." "I have the proxy," Derek screamed, his voice cracking with hysteria. "I have the votes. I control 51% of the voting shares. I am the majority. My word is law." He held up his hand, fingers splayed, trembling with the intensity of his delusion. "I spent the last 3 months gathering those proxies," Derek ranted, revealing his hand in his desperation. "While she was playing saint in South America, I was calling the shareholders. I convinced them that she was incompetent. I convinced them that the company needed strong leadership. They signed their rights over to me. I have the documents in my office. I am the king of Vanguard Horizons." He looked at me over Gabriel's shoulder, a triumphant, manic grin stretching across his face. "You have nothing, Belinda," Derek spat. "You have a few percent of the stock and a dirty jacket. I own the board. I own the security. I own this building. So be a good little girl. Go to the hospital and let the adults run the business." He turned back to the guards. "Move the lawyer," Derek ordered. "Use tasers if you have to. Just get her out of my sight." Brock reached for the taser on his belt. The yellow plastic gleamed under the lobby lights. The situation had escalated from a corporate dispute to imminent violence. I looked at Gabriel's back. He was tense, ready to take a hit for me. I looked at Derek, drunk on power and fear. I knew I had to stop this, not with fists, but with the one thing Derek respected more than force, the truth. I placed a hand on Gabriel's shoulder. "It is okay, Gabriel," I said softly. He turned his head slightly, whispering, "Belinda, do not let them take you. Once you are in the system, it will take days to get you out. By then, he will have shredded everything." "He is not shredding anything," I said, "and he is not taking me anywhere." I stepped out from behind Gabriel. I walked past him, ignoring the guards, ignoring the taser, until I was standing face to face with Derek. He flinched, expecting me to hit him, but I just looked at him with a profound, terrifying sadness. "You really believe it, don't you?" I asked. "You really believe you have 51%? "I know I do," Derek sneered. "I have the signatures I bought out. The chaotic small shareholders I consolidated the voting block I won." "You bought out the small shareholders?" I asked, tilting my head. "The ones who held the Class B stock, the anonymous holding companies." "Yes," Derek gloated. "I bought them all. They sold me for pennies on the dollar because they lost faith in you." I smiled. It was the smile of a wolf that had just watched the lamb walk into the trap. "Derek," I said softly, "who do you think sold you those shares?" Derek blinked. The question confused him. What who cares? Some shell companies, some investors. "Gabriel," I said, not taking my eyes off my husband, "please explain to Mr. Sterling how the stock market works." Gabriel stepped forward, reaching into his inner pocket for a second. Slimmer file. "Mr. Sterling," Gabriel said, his voice dry and amused. "You claimed you bought the proxy votes from a series of anonymous holding companies, specifically Aurora Holdings, Andean Ventures, and Pachamama Investments." "So what?" Derek snapped. "I bought them. They are mine." "Actually," I interrupted, "you bought them from me." The air in the lobby was so thin it felt like breathing glass. Derek stood frozen, his mouth half open, the confident sneer sliding off his face like wet paint. The words I had just spoken, "You bought them from me," were bouncing around the marble walls, echoing in the silence. But his brain refused to process them. It was simply too catastrophic, too complete a reversal for a narcissist to comprehend in a single moment. "You are lying," Derek whispered, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. He looked around the room, seeking an ally, seeking anyone who would validate his delusion. "That is impossible. I vetted those companies. Aurora Holdings, Andean Ventures. They are offshore investment firms. They have nothing to do with you. You were in Peru building mud huts." "I was in Peru," I corrected him, stepping closer, my voice calm and steady. "But I certainly was not building mud huts. I was building a trap." I nodded to Gabriel. "Show him." Gabriel moved with the precision of a conductor raising his baton. He walked over to the large media console behind the reception desk, the same massive screen that had been displaying the ridiculous superhero cutout advertisement earlier. He pulled a cable from the podium and plugged it into his tablet. The screen flickered. The superhero vanished. In its place, a complex corporate family tree appeared, projected in high definition for everyone in the lobby to see. "Ladies and gentlemen," Gabriel announced, his voice projecting clearly without a microphone, "if you will direct your attention to the screen, I would like to give you a short lesson in corporate structure." Derek stared at the screen. The color drained from his face until he looked like a corpse standing upright. "As you can see," Gabriel continued, using a laser pointer to circle the names at the bottom of the tree, "these are the 3 holding companies Mr. Sterling purchased the majority proxy votes from last week: Aurora, Andean, and Pachamama. He paid a premium price for these votes, nearly $3 above market value per share, using funds he liquidated from his personal assets." "So what?" Derek snapped, sweat dripping down his nose. "I bought them. They are mine. I control the majority vote. That means I control the board. That means I can fire her." "Keep looking up the tree, Derek," I said softly. Gabriel moved the laser pointer up. The lines from the 3 companies converged into a single parent entity, the Peruvian Education Development Trust. "And who," Gabriel asked rhetorically, "is the sole beneficiary and trustee of this organization?" He tapped the screen. A name appeared in bold letters: Belinda Ashford. "No," Derek gasped. He staggered back as if he had been punched in the gut. "No, that is fraud. You tricked me." "It is not fraud, Derek," I said, walking toward him, the sound of my boots heavy and final. "It is business. You spent the last 6 months complaining about the gnats, the small, family-owned shareholders who asked too many questions at the annual meetings. You wanted them gone. You wanted total control." I stopped 3 feet from him. "So, I gave you what you wanted," I continued. "While I was in Peru, Gabriel approached those small shareholders on my behalf. We bought them out, quietly, respectfully, and folded their shares into my trust. Then, I created those shell companies to offer the proxy votes for sale. I knew you could not resist. I knew you were desperate to secure your position before I came back." I smiled, but it was a cold, wintry thing. "You spent $5 million of your own money you likely stole from the company in the first place, to buy voting rights from me. Effectively, you just donated $5 million to my charity in Peru, and the best part, the proxy agreement you signed has a very specific clause in paragraph 14. Derek's eyes darted to Gabriel. "Paragraph 14, Gabriel recited from memory, his tone dry. "In the event that the proxy holder is under investigation for a felony, all voting rights immediately revert to the original trustee." "Which means," I said, delivering the death blow to his ego, "you do not have 51%. Derek, you do not even have 1%. You are standing in my lobby, holding a worthless piece of paper, having funded the very schools you mocked me for building." The lobby erupted. It wasn't a cheer, but a collective release of tension, a low rumble of murmurs, gasps, and whispers. The employees, who had been terrified moments ago, were now looking at their CEO with open contempt. The security guards, realizing the tide had turned, stepped away from Derek, leaving him isolated in the center of the room. Derek looked around wildly. He was drowning, and the water was rising fast. He looked at the screen, then at me, then at the exits. This is a conspiracy," he shrieked, his voice cracking. "You planned this. Your entrapment. I will sue you. I will sue the entire company." He spun around, searching for a lifeline. His eyes landed on a young man standing near the elevator bank. It was Julian, his executive assistant. Julian was a quiet, unassuming man in his late 20s with wire-rimmed glasses. The kind of person you forget is in the room. He had been by Derek's side for 8 months, carrying his coffee, scheduling his affairs, and presumably knowing where the bodies were buried. "Julian," Derek screamed, pointing at him. "Call the legal team. Call the firm of Cravath and Moore. Tell them to get down here immediately with an injunction. Tell them the chairwoman has gone rogue." Julian did not move. He stood perfectly still, his hands clasped behind his back, watching Derek with an unreadable expression. "Julian," Derek yelled, spit flying from his mouth. "Are you deaf? I gave you an order. Move." "I cannot do that, Mr. Sterling," Julian said. His voice was calm, deeper than I remembered, devoid of the nervous stutter he usually used around Derek. "What did you say to me?" Derek roared, stomping toward him. "I made you, I hired you when you were nothing. Do as I say, or I will destroy you." Julian sighed. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket, but he didn't pull out a phone. He didn't pull out a notepad. He pulled out a black leather wallet and flipped it open. A gold badge gleamed under the lobby lights. "My name is not Julian," the young man said. "It is Special Agent Arthur Smith, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Financial Crimes Division." Derek stopped dead in his tracks. He looked at the badge, then up at the face of the man he had treated like a servant for nearly a year. "FBI," Derek whispered. The blood left his face completely. "We have been watching you for 10 months. Mr. Sterling," Agent Smith said, stepping forward. "We started tracking the irregularities in the Vanguard accounts long before your wife went to Peru. But it was not just simple embezzlement. Was it? You were getting greedy." Agent Smith signaled to the main entrance. The revolving doors stopped spinning, and 4 agents in windbreakers marked FBI entered the lobby, moving with swift, professional purpose. "We tracked the wire transfers from your shell companies," Smith continued, his voice ringing out like a judge's sentence. "You were not just hiding money. You were laundering it through a network connected to sanctioned entities in Eastern Europe. The $15 million you moved through Miss Miller's accounts that triggered a federal alert the moment it hit the offshore bank." I watched Derek's knees buckle. He swayed, grabbing onto a decorative pillar to keep from collapsing. "Laundering?" Derek gasped. No, I did not know. I just wanted to hide the money for the divorce. I did not know who the bank was connected to. "Ignorance is not a defense, Derek," I said, stepping up beside Agent Smith. "Especially not when you are the CEO." I looked at my husband, and for a moment, the gravity of the situation hit me. I had known about the embezzlement. Gabriel had found the discrepancies months ago. That was why I left. I needed to get out of the line of fire, to let him feel safe enough to make mistakes, to let him think he had won, so he would expose his entire network. I had worked with the FBI from the start, agreeing to disappear so they could build their case, but I hadn't known about the laundering. That was a twist even I hadn't anticipated. He was not just a thief. He was a traitor to national security. "You played me," Derek whispered, looking at me with horror. "You were not building schools. You were building a cage." "I did both," I said simply. "Multitasking is a skill you never mastered." Derek looked at the FBI agents closing in. He looked at the exits, blocked. He looked at Chloe, who was still sobbing in the corner. realizing that her consulting fees were actually laundered money that carried a 20-year sentence. Then, he looked at me with pure hatred. "You knew," he hissed. "You knew everything. Why did you wait? Why come back today? Why not let me transfer the money next week like I planned? You wanted to humiliate me." "Actually, no," I said, shaking my head. "That is the funny part. Derek, we were going to wait. The FBI wanted to wait another 2 weeks to see if you would implicate your partners in the Caymans. We were going to let you have your little kingdom for 14 more days." I gestured to the corner where Chloe was sitting, her mascara running down her face like black tears. "But then," I said, "your girlfriend decided to throw a cup of coffee at me." Derek followed my gaze. Chloe looked up, her eyes wide with terror. "When she attacked me," I explained, "when she stood there and live-streamed her arrogance to the world, proclaiming she was your wife, she forced our hand. We could not risk her exposing the shell companies publicly before we had secured the assets. Her vanity accelerated the timeline." I walked over to Chloe. I looked down at her fake Hermes bag, sitting in a puddle of coffee. "You wanted to be an influencer, Chloe?" I asked softly. "Congratulations. You just influenced the FBI to raid this building 2 weeks early," Chloe wailed, burying her face in her hands. I didn't know. "You should thank her. Derek," I said, turning back to my husband. "Because of her little temper tantrum. You were arrested before you could initiate the final transfer. That might save you 5 years on your sentence. She effectively did you a favor." Derek stared at Chloe. The look on his face was murderous. The irony was suffocating him. The trophy mistress he had paraded around, the symbol of his ego, was the very thing that had tripped the wire. If she had just been polite, if she had just parked her car and walked in quietly, he might have had time to run. But her arrogance and his had been their undoing. "Agent Smith," I said, stepping back. "He is all yours." "Derek Sterling," Agent Smith intoned, pulling a pair of handcuffs from his belt. "You are under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit securities fraud. You have the right to remain silent." As the metal cuffs clicked around Derek's wrists, the sound sharp and final in the silent lobby, a wave of relief washed over me. It was done. The cancer was cut out. But Derek was not done. Even in handcuffs, even with the FBI reading him his rights. The cornered rat had one last bite. He twisted in the agent's grip, his face contorted, eyes bulging. "You think this is over? Belinda," he screamed, spittle flying. "You think you can just take the company back? You are bankrupt. I drained the liquidity. The reputation is ruined. You are the captain of a sinking ship." He laughed maniacally as they began to drag him toward the door. "And you?" He looked at Gabriel. "You think you are so smart? Stone. You think you saved her. Wait until the auditors see the Project Phoenix files. You are all going down with me." Gabriel didn't flinch. He just adjusted his cuffs. But Derek wasn't finished. As they dragged him past me, he leaned in, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "And the best part, Belinda. The prenup. You forgot about the prenup." He grinned, a rictus of pure malice. "Even if I go to jail, I get 30%, 30% of your trust, 30% of the company. It is ironclad. I signed it before the embezzlement started. You are going to be paying me for the rest of your life while I sit in a club-fed prison." He laughed again, a sound that chilled my blood. "I might lose the job," he shouted as the agents pushed him through the revolving doors. "But I still get the money I win. I still won." The doors spun. Derek Sterling vanished into the back of an unmarked black SUV. The lobby was silent again. I looked at Gabriel. He looked at me. "Project Phoenix?" I asked. "A bluff," Gabriel said dismissively. "He tried to hide debt in a subsidiary. I liquidated it yesterday." "And the prenup?" I asked. Gabriel's expression tightened. He didn't answer immediately. "Gabriel." "He is right," Gabriel admitted, his voice low. "The prenuptial agreement dictates that in the event of a divorce, regardless of cause, The assets are split 70-30. It was a condition your father agreed to because he liked Derek so much. He wanted to prove he trusted him. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. 30% of the Ashford Trust was billions of dollars. Even from prison, Derek would be one of the richest men in America. He would use that money to fight appeals, to harass me, to fund a life of luxury behind bars. "We have to stop him," I said. "We can fight it in court," Gabriel said. But he sounded doubtful. "But it could take years. The contract is solid." I looked at the stain on my jacket. I looked at the empty spot where my husband had stood. "No," I said. "I am not spending years in court. We end this today." I looked at Chloe, who was now being handcuffed by another agent. She was limp, defeated. "Chloe," I called out. She looked up, eyes red and swollen. "Did he really tell you he was leaving me?" I asked. "Yes," she sobbed. "He swore it. And did he tell you why?" "He said," she hiccuped. "He said you were boring and that he never really wanted to marry you. He said he had a secret." "A secret?" I took a step closer. "What secret?" Chloe sniffled. He said the wedding in Vegas 5 years ago. He said there was a problem with the paperwork. Something about a signature." My eyes widened. Gabriel looked at me, and I saw a spark of recognition in his eyes. "A problem with the signature," I whispered. I turned to Agent Smith, who was still coordinating the scene. "Agent Smith," I said, "before you take Miss Miller away, I need you to ask her one more question. It might be the most important question of the day." "What is it?" Smith asked. "Ask her," I said, a slow smile spreading across my face as the final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. "If she knows the name Veronica, the chaos that erupted in the lobby of Vanguard Horizons was not the disorderly panic of a riot, but the precise, surgical strike of a well-oiled machine, while Derek Sterling was being hauled toward the exit, screaming about his prenuptial agreement. The rest of the FBI team was moving with a synchronized efficiency that was almost beautiful to watch. The revolving doors had been locked into the open position. More agents poured in, wearing windbreakers emblazoned with the Bureau's yellow letters. They fanned out across the marble floor, securing the exits, the elevators, and the reception desk. I stood in the center of the storm, a calm eye amidst the hurricane, watching the dismantling of the false empire my husband had built. Derek was still struggling near the door. He had managed to dig his heels into the carpet runner, resisting the forward momentum of the agents. He twisted his head around, his eyes locking onto the man he knew as Julian, his meek executive assistant. "You?" Derek spat, his voice raw from screaming. "I trusted you. I let you into my home. I gave you a Christmas bonus. Agent Arthur Smith, no longer hiding behind the persona of a stuttering assistant, walked over to where Derek was pinned. He adjusted his glasses, but there was no fear in his eyes, only a steely professional detachment. He reached out and checked the tightness of the handcuffs on Derek's wrists, ensuring they were secure. "You gave me a $500 gift card to a steakhouse, Derek," Smith said, his voice flat. "And in exchange, you asked me to shred documents that are now federal evidence. That bonus was not a gift. It was a bribe. And for the record, I donated it to the Policeman's Benevolent Fund." "I will ruin you," Derek shrieked, frothing at the mouth. "I know people. I have senators on speed dial. Those senators are currently being served with subpoenas regarding their campaign contributions from your shell companies." Smith replied coolly. "You are toxic, Derek. No one is going to answer your call." With a nod from Smith, the agents heaved Derek forward. He kicked and thrashed, losing one of his Italian leather loafers in the process. The shoe lay overturned on the floor, a solitary symbol of his stripped dignity. As they shoved him through the doors and into the waiting black SUV, his screams about lawsuits and vengeance faded, cut off by the heavy thud of the car door closing. He was gone. The king was dead. But the queen, or rather, the pretender to the throne, was still here. I turned my attention to Chloe Miller. She was no longer the arrogant influencer who had strutted through the lobby 20 minutes ago. She was huddled in a chair near the security desk, her knees pulled up to her chest, shivering violently. A female agent stood over her, reading her rights from a laminated card. "You have the right to remain silent," the agent intoned. "Anything you say can and will be used against you." Chloe was not remaining silent. She was hyperventilating, her mascara creating black tracks down her pale cheeks. When she saw me approaching, she scrambled out of the chair. Ignoring the agent's command to sit, she threw herself onto the floor at my feet, reaching out with manicured hands that were now shaking uncontrollably. "Belinda, Mrs. Ashford, please," Chloe wailed, her voice high and thin with terror. "You have to help me. I didn't know, I swear to God. I didn't know." I looked down at her. I looked at the fake Hermes bag that was now tagged as evidence. I looked at the pink dress that had cost $2,000 of stolen money. "You didn't know what, Chloe?" I asked, my voice devoid of warmth. "I didn't know it was illegal," she sobbed, grabbing the hem of my dirty jeans. "Derek told me it was just business. He said everyone does it. He said he was protecting his assets. I just wanted to be someone. He manipulated me. He groomed me. I am the victim here." She looked up at me, her eyes wide and pleading, trying to leverage a sense of female solidarity that she had mocked only moments before. "You are a woman," she begged. "You understand. Right men like him, they lie. He used me just like he used you. Please, tell them to let me go. I will give everything back. The condo, the car, the clothes. Just please do not let me go to prison. I am too pretty for prison." It was the last sentence that sealed her fate. Even in the face of ruin, her vanity was her primary concern. I pulled my leg away from her grasp, stepping back as if avoiding a contagious disease. "Get up," I said sharply. Chloe froze, sniffing loudly. She slowly got to her knees. "You are not a victim, Chloe," I said, my voice projecting so that the watching employees could hear every word. "You are 22 years old. You are an adult. You signed your name on incorporation documents. You signed lease agreements. You accepted monthly transfers of $5,000 into your personal account." "But I didn't read them," she cried. "Ignorance is not a shield," I countered, cutting her off. "When you accept the benefits of a crime, you accept the liability. You were happy to take the luxury apartment. You were happy to spend the stolen money on shoes and handbags. You were happy to stand here and humiliate a janitor because you thought you had power." I leaned down, bringing my face level with hers. "You were not manipulated into being cruel," I whispered. "That was all you chose to be arrogant. You chose to be a bully. And now, you are choosing to blame everyone but yourself." I straightened up and nodded to the female agent. "Take her away." "No, no!" Chloe screamed as the agent pulled her to her feet and snapped the handcuffs onto her wrists. "Belinda, please, I am sorry, I am so sorry." "Save your apologies for the jury," I said, turning my back on her as Chloe was led away, weeping hysterically. The lobby did not return to quiet. Instead, a new kind of tension filled the air. The head of the snake had been cut off, but the body was still twitching. I looked toward the elevator banks. A group of about 6 people had gathered there, trying to look inconspicuous. They were dressed in expensive suits, clutching briefcases, and furiously typing on their phones. They were inching toward the side exit, hoping to slip away in the confusion. I recognized them all. They were the dream team Derek had hired during my absence, the sycophants, the enablers, the ones who had helped him doctor the books and terrorize the staff. There was Marcus Thorne, the VP of sales who had fired 3 pregnant women last month to cut costs. There was Linda Gray, the HR director who had buried every harassment complaint filed against Derek, and there was Simon LaCroix, the CFO, who had signed off on the vague consulting invoices. "Where is everyone going?" I called out. The group froze. They turned slowly, looking like deer caught in headlights. "Mrs. Ashford?" Simon LaCroix said. forcing a tight, oily smile. "We were just heading upstairs to secure the files, to help with the investigation." "Is that so?" I asked, walking toward them. Gabriel fell into step beside me, looking like the grim reaper of corporate law. "That is funny," I continued, "because Agent Smith tells me that your briefcases are likely full of shredded documents and encrypted hard drives." Simon's smile faltered. "That is preposterous. We are loyal employees. We were just following Mr. Sterling's orders. We had no idea about the embezzlement." "Stop," I said, raising a hand. "Just stop." I stopped in front of them. Looking at each face, I saw fear. Yes, but mostly I saw the calculating look of people wondering if they could still spin this. "You think because Derek is gone, you can pivot?" I asked. "You think you can claim you were just following orders? This is not the military. Simon, this is a publicly traded company. You had a fiduciary duty to the shareholders. You had a moral duty to the staff." I pointed to the reception desk, where the two young receptionists were watching with wide eyes. "You let Derek install a culture of fear," I said. "You watched him abuse the staff and did nothing. You watched him siphon money from the charity projects and you signed the checks. You are not innocent bystanders. You are accomplices." "You cannot prove that," Linda Gray snapped, her HR training kicking in. "If you fire us without cause, we will sue for wrongful termination. We have contracts. We have golden parachutes." I laughed. It was a genuine laugh this time, fueled by the sheer absurdity of their arrogance. "Golden parachutes?" I asked. "Gabriel, do they have golden parachutes?" Gabriel checked his watch. "As of 3 minutes ago, the board, the legitimate board that Mrs. Ashford reinstated via emergency proxy, voted to terminate all executive contracts signed by Derek Sterling under the faithless servant doctrine." He looked up at Linda, his eyes gleaming. "In the state of Illinois," Gabriel explained with relish, "an employee who acts against the interests of their employer forfeits all rights to compensation, severance, and benefits. You do not have golden parachutes. You do not even have health insurance." The color drained from Linda's face. "You are all fired," I announced, my voice ringing out across the lobby. "Effective immediately. You are banned from the premises. You will leave your company phones and laptops on the floor right now. Security will escort you out." I turned to the security guards, the ones who had hesitated to arrest me earlier. They were looking at me now with newfound respect and a healthy dose of fear. "Brock," I said to the head of security, "you have a chance to redeem yourself." Brock straightened up, looking relieved to have a clear order. "Yes, ma'am." "Escort these individuals out," I ordered, pointing to the group of executives. "If they try to take anything, a laptop, a file, a stapler, arrest them for theft." "With pleasure, ma'am," Brock said. He signaled to his team. The guards moved in, their hesitation gone. They surrounded the executives, herding them toward the door like cattle. "This is illegal," Simon shouted as he was shoved toward the exit. "You will hear from my lawyer." "Tell him to call Gabriel," I shouted back. "He loves a good laugh." Within minutes, the lobby was cleared of the rot. Derek was gone. Chloe was gone. The corrupt executives were gone. The only people left were the honest ones, the receptionists, the delivery guys, the confused middle managers who had come down to see the commotion, and Mr. Henderson, the janitor, who was still standing by his mop bucket, looking shell-shocked. The silence that fell over the room now was different. It wasn't tense. It wasn't scary. It was the silence of a battlefield after the smoke had cleared. I took a deep breath. The air felt cleaner. The oppressive weight that had hung over the building when I walked in, the loud music, the tension, the arrogance had been swept away. I walked over to the reception desk. The two girls, the ones who had ignored me earlier, were trembling. One of them was hiding her gum. The girl with the green nails stammered. "Mrs. Ashford, I am so sorry. I didn't know. I thought—" "Relax," I said softly. I looked at them. They were young. They were products of the environment Derek had created. They had been taught that rudeness was power and that kindness was weakness. "I'm not going to fire you," I said. They both exhaled, looking like they might faint. "But," I added, "things are going to change around here, starting now." I turned to the center of the lobby. I saw Mr. Henderson. He was staring at the floor, at the spot where Chloe had spilled the coffee. He looked defeated, a man who had been humiliated in the place where he had worked for 30 years. I walked over to him. My boots made a heavy sound on the marble. "Mr. Henderson," I said. He jumped, clutching his mop handle. "Mrs. Ashford, I will clean this up right away. I am sorry about the mess." "Leave it," I said. He blinked. "Ma'am." "Leave the coffee," I said. "I want everyone to see it. I want everyone to remember what happened here today." I reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder. His work shirt was rough, smelling of detergent. "I saw what happened," I said, my voice loud enough for the room to hear. "I saw how she treated you, and I saw how you maintained your dignity." Mr. Henderson looked up, his eyes watery. I just try to do my job, ma'am." "You do more than that," I said. "You remind us what this company is supposed to be about. Hard work, respect, humility." I looked around the lobby, making eye contact with every employee present. "Derek Sterling is gone," I announced. "The toxic culture he brought with him is gone. From this moment on, Vanguard Horizons returns to its roots. We treat everyone with respect, from the boardroom to the boiler room, and if anyone has a problem with that, they can follow Mr. Sterling out the door." I turned back to Mr. Henderson. "Mr. Henderson, how long have you worked here?" 32 years, ma'am," he replied proudly. 32 years, I repeated. "You have been here longer than I have. You know this building better than anyone," I smiled at him. "I think it is time for a promotion," I said. "We need a new head of facilities, someone who actually cares about the people who work here. The position comes with a corner office and a significant raise. Are you interested?" "Mr. Henderson dropped his mop. It clattered loudly on the floor. "Me," he whispered. "Head of facilities." "You earned it," I said. The lobby was silent for a split second. Then, Gabriel started clapping. Then the receptionists. Then the security guards. Soon, the entire room was erupting in applause. It wasn't the polite, fearful applause of a corporate event. It was genuine. It was loud. It was the sound of a community healing. I watched Mr. Henderson weep openly, shaking hands with the guards who were patting him on the back. I looked at Gabriel. He gave me a small nod, a look of profound relief on his face. We had won. We had taken back the castle. But as the adrenaline began to fade, a new reality set in. I looked down at my coffee-stained shirt. I felt the exhaustion of the flight, the fight, and the betrayal crashing down on me. Derek was in jail. The company was safe, but he had left me one final, poisoned gift, the prenup, 30%. I walked over to Gabriel, the cheers of the staff fading into the background of my mind. "We need to talk," I said quietly. "I am not giving him 30%. I am not giving him a single dime." Gabriel's face darkened. "Belinda, the contract is ironclad. I wrote it myself. Your father insisted on it." "I know you did," I said. "But there is something Derek said, something Chloe said." "About the wedding?" Gabriel asked. "Yes," I said, my mind racing back to a chapel in Las Vegas 5 years ago, to a night of champagne and impulsive decisions, to a man who seemed too good to be true. "He told Chloe the marriage wasn't real," I whispered. "He told her there was a problem with the signature." Gabriel frowned. "That sounds like a lie to get a mistress into bed." "Maybe," I said. "But what if it isn't? What if he was telling the truth, but for the wrong reasons?" I looked at the exit where Derek had been dragged out. "I need to see the marriage certificate," I said, "and I need you to find a woman named Veronica." "Veronica?" Gabriel asked. "Who is Veronica?" "I don't know yet," I said, a cold resolve settling in my chest. but I have a feeling she is the key to burying Derek Sterling forever. The revolving doors were still spinning from Derek's forced exit when the final obstacle emerged from the crowd. He was a short, stout man with slicked-back hair and a suit that cost more than my first car. I recognized him immediately. It was Leonard Vole, Derek's personal attorney, a man known in Chicago legal circles as the Hyena because he only showed up to feast on the carcasses of broken marriages and bankrupt companies. He walked toward me with a smug, oily confidence, holding a thick document in his hand. Through the glass of the main doors, I could see Derek being shoved into the back of the SUV. Derek saw Vole approaching me, and a look of manic, twisted glee contorted his face. He pressed his face against the car window, screaming something I could not hear. But I could read his lips perfectly. 30%. I win. He laughed, a silent, terrifying convulsion of his body. Before the agent slammed the door and the car sped away, lights flashing, Vole stopped in front of me, ignoring the FBI agents and the stunned employees. He adjusted his glasses and offered me a smile that made my skin crawl. "Mrs. Sterling," Vole said, his voice grating and nasal. "A tragic scene. Truly. However, business must be attended to. My client, Mr. Sterling, instructed me to present this to you immediately in the event of his termination or arrest." He thrust the document toward me. "As you are well aware," Vole continued, raising his voice so the remaining board members and Gabriel could hear, "the prenuptial agreement signed by you and Mr. Sterling 5 years ago is quite specific. Clause 7A states that in the event of a dissolution of marriage, regardless of fault, infidelity, or criminal conduct, the lesser-earning spouse, that being Mr. Sterling, as you are, the trust beneficiary, is entitled to a lump sum payout equivalent to 30% of the total marital assets." Gabriel stepped forward, his face pale. "That contract was signed under the assumption of good faith. Vole. Derek just embezzled $15 million. Irrelevant," Vole snapped. "The contract is ironclad. It was drafted by your own firm. Mr. Stone, it explicitly waives the bad boy clauses. Your father wanted to ensure Derek felt secure. Remember, he wanted to treat him like a son. Well, now that son wants his inheritance." Vole tapped the paper with a manicured finger. 30% of the Ashford Trust is approximately $2 billion, Vole announced, looking at me with predatory eyes. "My client might be going to prison, but he will be going as the wealthiest inmate in federal history. And you, Mrs. Ashford, will be writing the check." The lobby fell silent again. The victory that had felt so complete moments ago suddenly felt hollow. $2 billion. It was enough to bankrupt the charitable foundations. It was enough to cripple the company's expansion for a decade. Derek had lost his freedom, but he had managed to plunge a dagger into the heart of my legacy on his way out. I looked at the document. I looked at Gabriel, who looked devastated, burdened by the guilt of having drafted the very weapon now being used against us. "You really think you have won," I said softly to Vole. "The law is the law." Vole shrugged. "You can fight it, Belinda, but we will tie you up in court for 10 years. The legal fees alone will cost you millions. It is better to just pay him and move on." I reached out and took the document from his hand. The paper felt heavy, expensive. "You are right, Leonard," I said. "The law is the law." I held the document up. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, I tore it in half. Vole's eyes bulged. "What are you doing? That is a legal binding document. Tearing it up does not void it. We have copies." I tore the halves into quarters, then into the eighths. The sound of ripping paper was the only sound in the room. "It is not a binding document," I said calmly. "And do you know why?" "Because you are emotional," Vole sneered. "Because you are in denial." "No," I said, tossing the confetti-like pieces of paper into the air. They fluttered down around Vole's expensive shoes like snow. "Because a prenuptial agreement is a contract contingent upon a marriage. It dictates the terms of the union and its dissolution. I took a step closer to him, my voice dropping to a register of absolute, unshakable command. But you cannot enforce a contract for a marriage that never legally existed. Vole froze. Excuse me, you have been married for 5 years. There are certificates. There are photos. There are lies, I corrected him. You see, when I was in Peru, I did not just look at rocks. I hired a private investigator to look into the one period of Derek's life he never talked about, his gap year in Las Vegas 20 years ago. I turned to Gabriel. Gabriel, the file I asked you to hold. The blue one. Gabriel, looking confused but hopeful, handed me the slim blue folder he had been guarding. I opened it and pulled out a photocopy of an old, yellowed document. This, I announced, holding it up for Vole to see, is a marriage license from Clark County, Nevada, dated August 12th, 2005. Vole squinted at it. So, he was young. People get married. Yes, they do, I said. Derek Sterling married a woman named Veronica Miller, no relation to Chloe. Ironically enough, at the Little White Wedding Chapel, it was a drunken mistake. According to the few friends who knew about it, I pulled out a second document. But here is the problem, I continued. There is no divorce decree. There is no annulment. I searched every database in Nevada, in Illinois, in every state he has ever lived in. Derek Sterling never divorced Veronica Miller. The color drained from Vole's face faster than water from a cracked bucket. That is impossible, he stammered. He told us he was single. He signed the affidavit. He lied, I said. He abandoned her. He left Las Vegas, changed his resume, and reinvented himself. He forgot about Veronica, but the state of Nevada did not forget. Legally, Derek Sterling is still married to his first wife. I turned to the crowd, raising my voice to ensure every single person heard the final nail being driven into Derek's coffin. In the United States, bigamy is a crime, I declared. But more importantly for us, bigamy renders any subsequent marriage void ab initio, null from the beginning. It is as if it never happened. I looked back at Vole, who was now trembling. I am not Derek's wife, I said, a smile of pure liberation spreading across my face. I never was. In the eyes of the law, I am a single woman who has been cohabiting with a fraudster, which means there is no marriage to dissolve, there is no divorce to process, and there is absolutely, positively, no prenuptial agreement. Vole opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked at the torn paper on the floor. He realized that his client wasn't getting $2 billion. He wasn't getting 30%. He wasn't getting a single penny. In fact, I added, enjoying the moment, since he lived in my house and spent my money under false pretenses for 5 years, I will be suing him for restitution of every dollar he spent on food, clothing, and shelter. By the time I am done with him, he will owe me money. Vole did not say another word. He turned on his heel and ran. He actually ran, scurrying out the door to escape the radioactive fallout of his client's incompetence. The lobby erupted for the second time. But this time, the cheers were deafening. It was a release of pure joy. The monster wasn't just defeated. He was obliterated. He had been stripped of his title, his freedom, his reputation, and now, his fortune. I stood there, letting the noise wash over me. I felt light, the heavy burden of the last 5 years, the subtle gaslighting, the feeling that I wasn't good enough. The pressure to support a man who was secretly hollowing me out, it was all gone. I turned to the staff. They were looking at me with wide eyes, waiting. They needed a leader, not a ghost, not a victim, but a leader. I walked over to the reception desk and picked up the microphone one last time. Everyone, please, I said. The room quieted down instantly. I want to say something to all of you, I began, my voice steady. I owe you an apology. I saw surprise on their faces. CEOs did not usually apologize. I let this happen, I said honestly. I was so focused on my work overseas. so focused on the legacy of the buildings, that I forgot about the people inside them. I trusted the wrong man, and because of that, you all suffered. You dealt with a toxic environment. You dealt with fear. You dealt with uncertainty. That is on me. I abandoned my post, and I am sorry. I took a deep breath. But that ends today. I promised. Vanguard Horizons is not about stock prices or skyscrapers. It is about vision. It is about integrity. And we cannot build a future if our foundation is rotten. I turned to Gabriel Stone. He was standing by the pillar, looking at me with a mixture of pride and exhaustion. He had been the only one who stayed loyal, the only one who fought for the janitor, the only one who risked his career to help me take back my life. We need a leader who understands that, I said. We need a CEO who puts people before profits, a man who uses his own checkbook to pay a contractor because it is the right thing to do. I gestured to Gabriel. I am stepping down as interim CEO, I announced. I am an architect. I belong on the job site, not in the boardroom, effective immediately. I am appointing Gabriel Stone as the new Chief Executive Officer of Vanguard Horizons. Gabriel's jaw dropped. Belinda, I am a lawyer. You are the most decent man I know, I said, smiling at him. And you are the only person I trust with my father's legacy. Take the job. Gabriel, you earned it. The applause that followed was thunderous. Employees were shaking Gabriel's hand, patting him on the back. He looked overwhelmed, but as he looked at me, I saw him straighten his shoulders. He was ready. I placed the microphone on the desk. My work here was done. The fires were out, the rats were gone, the castle was secure. I looked down at myself. My boots were caked in mud, my jeans were stained, and my white t-shirt was a sticky, brown ruin. I needed air. I walked toward the main doors. The crowd parted for me, not out of fear, but out of respect. They whispered thank you and good luck as I passed. I nodded, acknowledging them, but I did not stop. I pushed through the revolving doors and stepped out onto the street. The Chicago air hit me like a splash of cold water. It was freezing. The sky had turned a slate gray, and the first flakes of the first snow of the season were beginning to fall. They danced in the wind, landing on the pavement, covering the grime of the city with a pristine, white blanket. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the sharp, clean air. It tasted like freedom. I shivered, the cold biting through my thin, coffee-soaked shirt. I looked at the denim jacket I was holding, the expensive, vintage Armani piece that Chloe had ruined. It was stiff with dried sugar and milk. It smelled of the lobby, of the fight, of the old life. I walked over to a metal trash can on the corner. I did not hesitate. I bunched the jacket up and shoved it into the bin. Goodbye, Derek, I whispered. I turned my face to the sky, letting the snowflakes melt on my cheeks, washing away the sweat and the dirt. Behind me, the heavy glass doors opened. Gabriel stepped out. He had grabbed his own long wool coat and was holding it open. You are going to freeze to death, he said, draping the warm, heavy coat over my shoulders. I pulled it tight around me, inhaling the scent of cedar and old books that always clung to him. I am okay, I said. Gabriel walked around to face me. He looked deep into my eyes, searching for cracks, searching for the trauma that should have been there. Are you really? He asked softly. You just lost your husband. You lost 5 years of your life. You nearly lost your company. Are you okay? Belinda. I looked at the falling snow. I looked at the bustling city. I looked at the towering building behind me, now glowing with a warm, golden light. I smiled. It wasn't a brave smile. It was a real one. I did not lose 5 years. Gabriel, I said. I spent 5 years learning exactly what I do not want, and today I took out the trash. I looked at him, my eyes blazing with a fire that the winter wind could not extinguish. I have never been better, I said, but there is one thing I need. Name it, Gabriel said. A drink? A A vacation, a therapist. I laughed. Coffee? I said. I need a cup of coffee. But this time, I want to drink it, not wear it. Gabriel chuckled, offering me his arm. I know a place, he said. It is cheap, it is quiet, and they have the best dark roast in the city. Lead the way. CEO Stone, I said, taking his arm. We walked down the street together, our footprints leaving fresh tracks in the new snow, moving away from the past and into a future that was finally, completely, mine. Thank you so much for listening to this story. Please let me know in the comments where you are listening from. I would love to hear your thoughts. Do not forget to subscribe to the Scarlet Revenge Stories channel, like the video, and hit the hype button to help this story reach more people.